whatever reason, it would not let me come in. So thank you guys for joining. We're going to be starting a little bit later tonight. We normally do the 8 o'clock time slot, but had to go ahead and kick it tonight around 9. Want to start at 9 or whatever, but I'm here. I'm glad that you guys are joining me. We're going to have a pretty interesting Twitter space, I believe, tonight. So I appreciate you guys stopping in. Please go ahead and tweet out the space. I don't know what happened with the Twitter space. I was trying to get on at 9:10, and it just like they talk about the Twitter wasn't working, the app wasn't working. So I had to create a whole nother space too. So I'll go ahead and please tweet it out. I just sent some DMs and stuff like that, but yeah, I really don't know what went on with that one there. I was trying to get into space and whatnot, and I couldn't get into space. It just pretty much just shut down on me. So peace to everybody coming up in the space. What's going on, Tony? 100K Carlos. And like I said, I was having some technical difficulties trying to get into the space, get everything started. So definitely had to catch up on this FSU game tonight, y'all. 2 FSU won 35-32. So, we Seminoles improved to 10-3. Won the little bowl game they was in. So that was nice as well, too. So, but we're gonna be talking about white on white crime. We're gonna be talking about recently we had they're talking about a mass exodus of people leaving the Christian church and stuff. So it's a huge mass exodus from Christianity here in America. And George Santos, I don't know if you guys heard of him, congressman up there in New York. Real trip here, this dude is, real trip. I mean, George is a Republican, and 1 minute he just went ahead and just fudged his credentials. 1 minute he was Jewish, the next minute he's Latino, this and that. So we're going to be touching up on all of this tonight, man. Like I said, I'm glad to have everybody come up in the space. If you could, please go ahead and tweet out the space. We're just trying to wait till a few more people come up in. Definitely normally not our regular time slot, but like I said, hey, I was trying to get it in what I could. So I appreciate everybody coming into the space as well. And all I can say is make sure y'all clear the cache in your phones, because I don't know what was going on with Twitter earlier. I was trying to get on, but it just would not let me. It kept talking about the app wasn't working, close the app and this and that. So I had to create a whole nother space on the fly. So appreciate you guys that's in the space as well. Go ahead and tweet that out. We're going to get started in just a second. So just hang tight. Tony, I see what you said. You said you couldn't get in for some reason either. So I was experiencing the same issue you were. Like I had to go ahead and close it out. So I don't know how was the actual the volume in here. Can you guys, the reception? Can you guys hear me and everything? Is everything clear and whatnot in here? For this, just give me a thumb up, because I don't know exactly. Like I said, these Twitter spaces of late have really been something else. To say the least. So if the volume is good in here, you guys can hear me in the Twitter space. Okay, Carlos gave me a thumb up, so I guess everything is good on his end. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing rolling. And yeah, I'm gonna share a couple articles tonight real quick just to get everybody caught up on it. And actually the article I'm going to use about the white on white crime is just something that actually is a few years old and stuff, but it just highlights the actual the media's lack of coverage on crimes that white people committed. You always say the only people you ever hear killing each other is only black people. It's always black on black crime, but that never seems to fit with any other race. So let me go ahead, and I may just go ahead and start off on that one right now while everybody's coming into the space, and they can just go ahead and they can hear what's going on. So we'll go ahead and get that rolling. You go ahead and find that article. I'm gonna have to read it off of the actual site. It was curated on Newstoter.com. Matter of fact, once I go ahead and read it, I will also put it in the Jumbotron as well too, y'all. So I would definitely put that up in the Jumbotron as well. So just give me 1 second. And this article is from Vox. This was back in 2015, so some of the numbers are going to be outdated. But this article is just talking about the white-on-white murder in America is out of control. It says blacks represent 13% of the population, but commit 50% of the murders. 90% of victims are murdered by other blacks, writes Times Joe Klein, calling for provocative thinking on race in America. The facts suggest that history is not enough to explain this social disaster. Yet the disturbing truth, according to the FBI's most recent homicide statistics, is that the United States is in the wake of an epidemic on white crime. Back in 2011, the most recent year for which data is available, a staggering 83% of white murder victims were killed by fellow Caucasians. Like I said, that number I believe is actually higher. This is an old article, but I just wanted to go ahead and use it to point to what we're talking about tonight. This is not to say that white people are inherently prone to violence. Most whites obviously manage to get through life without murdering anyone. And there are many countries full of white people, Norway, Iceland, France, Denmark, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, where white people murder each other at a much lower rate than you see here in the United States. On the other hand, although people often see criminal behavior as a symptom of poverty, the quantity of murder committed by white people, specifically in the United States, casts some doubt on this. Per capita GDP is considerably higher here than in France, and the white population in America is considerably richer than the national average, and yet have more white murderers. To understand the level of the cultural pathology at work here, it is important to understand that 36% of those killed by whites are women, a far higher share than you see with black murderers. Clearly, the social disasters of white violence has complicated roots, but the beginning of an answer is to admit that we have a problem. It's striking that President Obama, like I said, this is an older article, so it's talking about when President Obama was in office back in 2015. President Obama, who's frequently found time to comment on the height of black men's waistlines, seems oblivious to this torrent of white killing. To be fair, the White House, however, it would be uniquely difficult for Obama to address this delicate issue. The real tragedy is that none of Obama's 43 white predecessors have addressed it either. Indeed, looking back on America's political iconography, there are disturbing trends towards a glorification of white violence. Peer inside the U.S. Capitol building, and you'll find a monument to Confederate President Jefferson Davis, the leader of an insurgency that caused an unprecedented quantity of white violent deaths. But whatever the causes of past mistakes, the important thing is to confront this important subject in the future. As we look ahead to a 2016 matchup that should give us two Euro-American major party nominees for the first time in a decade, perhaps America can finally get the debate about white violence it deserves. So yeah, like I say, this article was actually an older article, but I just wanted to point it out. And also you had I think you had Bishop Talbot also speaking about this earlier today, just using some statistics to talk about the actual white crime that you see in America as well too. So just wanted to go ahead and point that out. That's going to be one of the topics we're touching on tonight. I see DJ's up in the house. DJ, what's going on? Ray, I see you as a listener. If you want to come up, I know you may want to just chill tonight, but if you want to come up as a co-host, I'm sending you the invite. DJ, what's going on?
Stuck in the matrix as usual. That's what's going on. Let's do a reparation. Let's get it.
Yeah, I was stuck in the matrix. That's what I was telling everybody. I tried to start the initial space, but it wouldn't let me. It kept talking about Twitter was having problems and close the apps. So I had to create a whole nother space, just to go ahead and get this thing rolling.
What's our record?
I just thought he was watching the Florida State game.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was watching that. That's why that's why I put the time at 9:00. But so I pushed it because I was getting ready to start at 9:10. So yeah, that's what I told everybody that was in the space. Like, yeah, I had to watch the FSU game, but I put it at 9:10. But when I got ready to go in at 9:10 and start it, it wouldn't allow me to start it. So I had to go ahead and close it and do something and just try to get back on. But yeah, I had to watch the Florida State game. But yeah, just getting to this thing about, like I say, the white on white crime, something that you rarely hear about. I just felt the need that we were going to talk about it. And we're also going to talk about the mass exodus for Christianity. Professor Black Truth had an actual video today talking about that, talking about the upset. You had Fox News, one of their broadcasters got upset and had a little segment on it about the mass exodus that you have right now in Christianity and this and that, and how Christianity, just it's the basics for everything in life and stuff like that, and blaming a lot of different reasons for why people leave in Christianity. But, I'm going to also cover up on that as well, too. So, yeah, I just want to go ahead and these are the three topics. And I accidentally spelled the man name wrong, George. So I got to go ahead and go up in the Jumbotron. And I meant to put
Georgia Santos. That's his name for it. Georgia Santos.
Yeah, we got to go ahead and correct that a little bit. Let me go ahead and correct that for real. because he's George. Go ahead and correct that and do that real quick.
Georgia. You see, that's what I'm saying. It might have been the actual way you meant to put it, and that wasn't purposeful. Not saying you can't spell, I'm just saying.
You know how sometimes the stuff pop up when you and it just goes ahead and it just like it has a mind of its own or whatever. So that's how it got me. But yeah, this cat George.
Autocorrect is what it's called.
Yeah, it got me. I wasn't even paying attention. I thought I just spelled it out or whatever, but nonetheless, that was my mistake. George Santos, like, and George, he's a character too, man. And matter of fact, tonight I'm gonna touch up on all the articles real quick before we dig in. Let me go ahead and get to this. I want to cover the thing with Christianity, like I say. And I'm gonna have DJ also play this, the one from Professor Black Truth as well too. This is from the Grid .news. It says a mass exodus, and all of this was curated Newstoter.com platform. I'm gonna put that also in the jumbotron in a second too. I just want to go ahead and cover up on it. It says a mass exodus from Christianity is underway in America. Here's why. It's less about hot button topics like abortion and gay marriage, and more about the Cold War and the internet. I don't know how in the hell the Cold War would have anything to do with people leaving Christianity, but okay, whatever. While the number of Americans who celebrate Christmas as a culture holiday is going strong, there has been a shocking rise in the number of people ditching Christianity, what sociologists call non-verts. Pew Research estimates that Christians will be a minority of Americans by 2070 if current trends continue, and it likely will, with the largest percentage of those losing their religion being young adults who are about as old as that REM reference, people around 30 and under. It's kind of a cultural whiplash from religion to secularism that's hit the United States much faster than it has other parts of the world, says theology and sociology professor Stephen Bullivant. Bullivant, a practicing Catholic who teaches at St. Mary's University in London and the University of Notre Dame in Sydney, spoke to Grid about why Americans are leaving Christianity in droves and the demographics that are seeing ungodliest declines. His new book, Nonverts, The Making of Ex-Christian America, came out in the U.S. on December 1st. Young adults are leading the mass exodus. Bullivant made it clear that it's important not to gloom all young adults, non-verse, as having one big reason for leaving the church. Each person has a complex story, and we need to recognize the personal journey, he told Grid. That said, he added, there are larger trends we can examine. For example, the largest demographic of non-verse younger adults will raise their children as nuns, people from non-religious families, and while a tiny percentage of non-verse return to religion, nuns rarely embrace religion at any point in their lives. Bullivant noted that it's not shocking that young adults are the ones leaving at the highest rates. When people do non-vert, he said, they tend to do so in their early mid-20s. And to those who dismiss the trend as just young people trying something different who will eventually come back to church, that is not what the data shows. Not only have the percentages of adults under 30 claiming to have no religion increased dramatically over the past 50 years, other age groups saw rises as well, Bullivant said. While the trend towards atheism in Europe has been a slow but steady decline, Bullivant said the increase in Christian dropping the faith didn't really take off in the U.S. until the early 2000s, and the decline since then has been a steep and quick. For people who study such trends, there was a kind of feeling that in the 90s that the rise of secularism hadn't happened yet in America. There was no reason to think it would. Even the most dramatic historical examples of religious growth or decline tend to occur over many generations, he said, but then it was as if the early 2000s something was released. It wasn't long ago when you were talking about a big culturally religious shift as we're talking about, he added. And it's important to note that it wasn't an influx of circular immigrants or noons raising throngs of non-religious babies. It was about America deciding they were not tied to any religion. Interesting, while a third of Americans that identify as noons say they are atheists or agnostic, Bullivant notes in his book, the rest have varying degrees of belief in God, Christian or otherwise. He also said, if you look at the big picture of American 20th century culture, you stop asking, why is it happening now? And start asking, why didn't it happen earlier? You can't just blame the shifting on political views. It's about looking at what happened in the 20th century that dampened down the possibility of being non-religious and what changed, he asked. Bulletin said there are three main answers to the question: the Cold War, 9/11, and the internet. If you compare the Cold War in Europe to the Cold War in the US, there was one major difference when it comes to religion. In the US, it was very much about Christian America versus godless communism, whereas in Europe, it just there just wasn't religious element. In Europe, it was okay to explore secularism a bit, he said, whereas in America, questioning the faith or going so far as to claim they were atheists was really not socially acceptable on a political, cultural, or religious view. It's also about who the atheists and the agnostics influence were in both parts of the world. In the UK, for example, it was respectable establishment intellectual figures such as mathematician, philosopher Bertrand Russell. In the United States, said Boulevard, you had people like Madeline Murray O'Hare, who, while fascinating for all sorts of reasons, was very easy to depict as someone who had been a communist, who tried to defect to Moscow and was a divorcee, which made all the sort of social outcasts during religiously overtoned Cold War. The generation born after the height of Cold War in the early mid-'80s didn't grow up with propaganda and blacklist fear, says Boulevard. So there's a safe space with the idea of non-religious life to open up. When 9/11 happened, then you have a new atheism and many prominent people coming out publicly questioning faith in a higher being, such as Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and Richard Dawkins. And it becomes okay to reevaluate what you believe. They open up a non-religious space. And of course, the internet. That was happening about the same time, and it gave people access to communities of people all questioning their faith. He also particularly saw this while interviewing ex-Mormons. If you're raised in a small town in Texas or Idaho and everyone you know is some kind of Christian, you're kind of in a bubble. And then with the internet, you start getting support groups online with thousands of members, and that helps you erode those bubbles. He said, one thing Boulevard said is overemphasized when it comes to examining why people leave the church is shifting cultural values. As people opinions in the U.S. changed on women's roles in society, abortion, and same-sex marriage, it was absolutely difficult for the churches to deal with. They thought it meant alienating large segments of people who didn't agree with the church's stances on issues. But if you look at the Episcopal Church, which has changed along with the culture, its numbers are tanking, said Boulevard. Church is shifting with the times, doesn't seem to fill the pews. When Catholics say the reason young people are leaving is because they disagree with the church on abortion and contraception, they do disagree with the church in abortion on contraception and gay marriage and all sorts of stuff, he said. But it's very unlikely that if the church changed those positions or softened them in a pastoral way, that those people wouldn't leave or they'd come back or anything like that. Interesting enough, Boulevard said, historically, the Civil War and World War II often triggered religious revivals on the fringe of mainstream, such as cults. The fact that that hasn't been apparent with COVID, the most recent event is more evidence of religious mainstream, he said. The closet group that comes is perhaps the rise of Koran, he said, with a more secular and religious group. So yeah, basically they're talking about everything that's under the sun, the reason why people are leaving religions and stuff like that. It's a whole lot of reason that people are actually leaving religion. I mean, if you want to be honest, some of it just for the simple fact that, people, with time, people, their faith and stuff changes. And also a lot of people feel like the church are not really doing anything to really help the community out as well too. A lot of Black people don't feel like the God that their parents worship, that looks with a blonde hair and blue eyes, are the God that they should follow. And of course, I know this article wasn't directly talking about Black people because they didn't really mention race and stuff in it. But a lot of white folks probably feel the same way as too. So I believe your name is Anak. I don't know if I spelled it. I said it correctly.
It's
Ani. I'm sorry about that.
Yes, I just wanted to speak on what you were saying with are these particularizing validated people or just people in general leaving Christianity?
It sounds like it's just people in general.
Okay, well, in general, since I represent my community and in general, I think it's the information age that's allowing people to realize that religion, or the Abrahamic religions, which is what mainly people, attribute, their whole life towards, dedicating themselves towards that type of religion. And that teaches only morality on a level. But in this information age, where we can look stuff up and see certain things, we can see that religion is a control factor. And we can see also that our ancestors practiced spirituality. So you got to look at spirituality and what the church tries to do. They try to incorporate and say that spirituality is a practice of religion because you pray, close your eyes, or you talk in tongues, or these other type of things. You have a scripture for every single thing that you say, like you're following direct commands from a deity, instead of realizing that their own scripture said that each and every one of us is a deity ourselves to execute what we need while we're in this physical life. So I think spirituality is something that, for the reason you said agnostic when you were reading that article, but I don't think in our community there's a lot of agnosticism. I know Gnosticism is your pre-Christian practice. A lot of Black people don't know about that. But agnostic and atheist, I don't think there's a lot of people looking to that directly. I think that we're trying to understand what is the origin of this thing. And we also see that we were controlled by it in slavery. It was a control factor. And now that we entered into this information age, we can plainly see that this thing isn't always literal. There's some metaphors that's attached to it. There's some esotericism that's attached to it. So that freed a lot of, we came to that information during the Afrocentric era with our master teachers like John Henry Clark or Yosef Ben Yaakov. People of that type of tier, they brought us into another standard of information of how to look at this thing. And that freed us from having a certain landscape of seeing why they did what they did with what this thing Christianity is called, which there's an older practice of Christianity and older civilizations that I can point to as well. But I'm gonna let my play with this. I think we can still coexist and walk into a church and have the information that we know, and not try to criticize someone for practicing, one of the three Abrahamic religions or whatever their religious practices. But I really urge people to study information and understand a lot of things that we've been told of what religion is indeed not what it is. And as a matter of fact, the word religion is a Latin term. It originates in its etymology in a Latin term called religare. And the word religare, when you look into the dictionary, and there's a couple of dictionaries you can look into, it means to constrict and to hold back. So a lot of religious practices keeps you back from the real information of what it comes from. And I think this generation from the article read, they're freeing themselves from that constriction. But thank you.
Absolutely, no problem. And I think the interesting thing is, like you say, he wasn't really even talking about race into the actual article. He was mainly just mentioning that I guess that you have such a number of people in this country that when you think about, if you think about 50 years ago, the amount of people, if you ask them if they believed in God, that the amount of people would tell you overwhelmingly, 90% of people, I believe, said that they believe in God. But I believe, based off of what Professor Black Truth was saying, he had a video that only something like 20% of people actually believe. I mean, you got up to 20% of people that actually don't believe there is a God or a higher power or anything like that. Just in terms of Black people, I think you have a lot of Black people, younger Black people, and by younger Black people, I'm talking about people under 50, that really, those who were probably the children, the baby boomers, feel that they grew up going to church and this and that, and they went there every Sunday because their mother made them or their parents made them go or whatever. But that when they see the actual plight of the Black community, some of them feel like the churches themselves have failed, that they haven't gone further than what they should have gone. We had a space about that, saying something that think since 1980, the black churches have received between the donations and funding and stuff like that, something like over 300-400 billion dollars. Don't quote me on that, but it was an exorbitant amount. So I think when people hear that kind of stuff, especially the black folks, and like you said, at times Christianity has been a motivating tool, because that was the only way at times that we could get together and plot and scheme and come together and group up some stuff, especially in terms of civil rights. But after the civil rights movement died down, I don't think you had that sense of family anymore in the actual with the actual religion and Christianity and stuff like that. So I can sit here and say straight up, and I don't go to church like I used to. Only time I really went to church as I got older was, my mom would ask me or this or that or whatever, and that's different because she did bring us up in the church. She brought me and my sister up in the church, and she made sure we went. Now she would take my boys to church and stuff like that, because she's like, hey, they need God in their life, they need Jesus and stuff like that. And, I didn't have an issue with that, but it is a little bit different. So on that end, as compared to where you were like religiously going and stuff like that to church, and not only going to church, they made you volunteer in the church. You was going to be an usher, or you was going to do something, you be part of some kind of group or something like that. You just weren't going to church to go to church. You was going to actually be a participant. So I believe that part is different of it. But like I say, I believe you also have a lot of black people in the country. And like I said, the article wasn't pinpoint on black people. So that's why I think you really see the actual desperation coming, because if it's just black people, it kind of be a drop in the bucket. But this is really, really, when you're starting to see these empty pews and these donation places kind of getting a little light and stuff like that, that's caused for a lot of folks out there. If you're into it.
Yeah. I'm sorry to just add over what you're saying. It's Generation Z. Generation Z isn't it. They're not there. The why is the same thing. It's information age. And a lot of those people that's in the generation prior, Generation X or these other generations, they once they got of age, they realized that what they were learning in church wasn't the all be all truth too. Like myself, I learned, even though I went to church my whole life, like I said, I participated as an usher, I participated as a choir member, but you figure out later on, because the internet was in its infancy stage. Those of us who saw the internet come, we saw the development of technology. We saw something that these other generations would never see. We saw a transference of how we look at consciousness. You can remember in the 90s how I was read before post, early 2000s and post 2000s. So that whole things have become real radical. So these new kids are seeing that. They're looking at it as though we're not going to make the same mistake and behold a portion of our lives, a great portion, 25 years of our lives, thinking that there is some man in the sky. Not to say that there's a higher power. We all should understand or maybe levels that there has to be something, a source somewhere of what's happening. You understand that from scientifically, you understand that from anything from spirituality. There is a source. So there's more than likely a higher power. And people are in here not believing that. But my main point is, since we're of our community, I was just speaking on our struggle against it. And look at the civil rights people, brought up the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King was a pastor. So he was the lead voice of the civil rights movement, even though we had other lead voices, but he was the main martyr of that civil rights movement. And he was holding church services and stuff. And look, he was preaching from the Bible why we should be docile in our approach, until later on he learned that, I led my people into a great power. That was too. A lot of people got that story years later, which they don't even know. He didn't die from a gunshot. He died because somebody put a pillow over his face in the hospital. They don't tell you they walked into a church while his mother was singing on the choir and shot her in the head. I don't know if y'all know that.
Wait, real quick about the Dr. King. You're saying that Dr. King was actually somebody when he got to the actual hospital, somebody pretty much suffocated him, is what you're saying?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I actually was always told that he died almost on the spot. It was almost,
No.
he quite died there, but it wasn't a whole lot left of him when he got to the hospital.
No, he died in the hospital. He died from suffocation on the pillow. That's verified.
No, yeah, I never. Now I did hear there was almost a hit on his family afterwards and stuff. That, several members of his family, there was almost a hit on them. But I didn't hear to the point which you're saying that you're saying that he was suffocated. Now I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, you can look that up. Go ahead,
That, now I was gonna say that I read that in there's a book that was written by William F. Pepper called An Act of State. That's where that came from, but as far as I can tell, that hasn't actually been verified. And I want to also mention that his brother, Martin Luther King, had a brother named A.D. He was drowned. He drowned in a pool. So like Newstoter was saying, a lot of these people in his family, start mysteriously coming up dying. Like Malcolm X's, I believe, grandson, he died in New Mexico. Bob Marley's grandson just died in 2 days. I don't know. Maybe it might. Yeah, I hear his grandson died in Mexico. What did I say? I'm sorry.
You said Martin Luther King. Obviously.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I misspoke. Yeah, excuse me.
So yeah, and also his did you know his Martin Luther King's mother was shot in the head while singing a choir on the choir church?
Yeah. She was playing the organ and she got shot. I saw that. And she was playing on the organ and she got shot. I forget what her name is on top of my head though. Yeah, that's not all a coincidence. They put targets on your back when they see you're like someone prominent and stuff. Like I've heard rumors. This is obviously just rumors, obviously, that Muhammad Ali's what did he die of Parkinson? I've heard that they were like giving him something like in his water and putting in his food that actually made it worse than what it needed to be or something. But like I said, it's just all.
I've been speaking of that. There's a white woman that came to every one of his fights and said, "One day I'm going to shut you up." I forgot her name. She said, "One day I'm going to shut you up permanently." And they said that her and some other, I don't know who it would be, but you have to understand when we have these great influencers in our community, we can look and say, "Oh, we don't have the evidence that this happened," but all of us know deep inside of us there's some funny stuff that's been going on that's not reported with evidence. And even if they do have certain evidence, people that's connected to them folks, they can mess around with the evidence they give the public and tell somebody a different narrative than what the evidence is proving. But I'm not trying to be, because that word conspiracy theory comes from when JFK got killed. The word conspiracy was born when people started to question who killed him. Which
I'll jump in really quick. But it's funny you say that because it just came out that I believe the CIA or the FBI actually admitted that they were involved in JFK's murder after they were the one talking about conspiracy theories.
You see, so that's why when I talk to people in our community, they be like, "Oh, you one of those conspiracy theorists," and I'm like, you don't even know that's a white supremacist term that's created to dilute information. Because even though JFK is somebody from their community, the conspiracy theorists, I said the biggest conspiracy in America is on black people. How could you even use that fucking word, conspiracy theory, when the country is built on people conspiring against us?
That's real talk. I mean, that's real talk. Be codified. Go and unmute your mic, honey.
What's going on, fam? What he was saying, what Ani was saying about MLK being smothered. Yeah, actually, that was supported by a nurse that actually seen it. It was a white nurse. Ray, I think that came out. Judge Joe Brown presided in the case and won the case. You know what I'm saying? And it was real despicable case because it was only for $1 that they sued Memphis. I think it was Memphis, and Dick Gregory bought the shit all out. You know what I'm saying? And I remember hearing him saying Judge Joe Brown, and I was like, damn, Judge Joe Brown on TV. So I think that was brought out in that case that he presided over, and for Memphis, local government or police department, and said FBI. They proved that FBI had something to do with it as well. I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe Dick Gregory brought that out, and it was, I think, I know that's your people's, right?
Yeah, that's my cousin. That's what I was gonna say, because I saw an interview that he did.
Who's your cousin, Ray? Who's your cousin?
Judge Joe Brown.
Okay, go ahead.
So I believe there was an interview that he did with, I believe was Lab TV, or it was with some other, and they was talking about it because they asked him about all these conspiracies. But like I said, he presided over it. He obviously knew the King family and stuff, and I believe he just said that the bullet is what did it to him. But then again, I've heard, hey, he survived. There was a doctor named Ben Berland. He suffocated him in the hospital, called him a nigga, and spit all over him. I've heard so many different things. Like I said, but what I'm telling y'all is when that book that I read is, it was about William Pepper. It was a book called An Active State. If anyone wants to read it, a lot of things that he's talking about. I'm sorry, I'll be more codified. I just wanted to jump in and add a little 2 cents.
Oh no, definitely, because hey, I know your sources, pretty keen on all the time. So I know that I definitely heard Dick Gregory speak on that a few times. But again, Dick Gregory is the secondary source. Judge Brown, he was there. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, shit, he shed light on Tina Turner and how she was really the abusive one, abusing Ike. You know what I mean? And a lot of people weren't ready to deal with that, but I got mad respect for your cousin, Mr. Judge Joe Brown.
Hey, real quick, I just want to, in the Jumbotron, I want to just, something that Bishop Talbot Swan, he posts stuff all the time. Something I found interesting, and when we're talking about the white on white crime and stuff, he said white men killed 55 Native Americans, 60 million Africans and their descendants via the transatlantic slave trade, 2 million in the Civil War, 37 million in World War I, 85 million in World War II, 1 million in Iraq and Afghanistan, but always talking about black on black violence. So I just found that pretty interesting, and the Civil War, I forgot the actual number in the Civil War, but I mean,
he said they only killed 60 million Africans.
He said via the actual slave trade. Now I don't know if you can. I don't know. He said 60 million Africans and their descendants via the slave trade, slavery, and lynching. But I did see him post something one other time where I believe he said, I think he might have had that even at maybe 70 million or something like that. Another one in the Jumbotron, he says, you would think for the fact that white men killed 2 million white men in the Civil War, 34 million in World War I, 82 million in World War II, and killed 88% of white people that are murdered in America, they would be enough of them to shut up about black on black violence. So I think he did have something else too, where he was talking about let me see Jumbotron. Now on this one, he says because you had this rabbi who basically he went in on this Rabbi Shmuley bio teacher, whatever, condemns one man ups comparing human suffering, then in the same breath calls the Holocaust the world's greatest crime. He said the Nazis murdered 6 million Jews, colonizers killed 55 million indigenous people, 70 million Africans died in the transatlantic slave trade. So, I'm pretty sure those numbers got to be close. I know some people, I've heard people even estimate as much as 100 million. I don't know. I don't know if any statistician can really prove exactly if it was 50 million or 100 million or whatever. But let's just say like this right here: 70 million, 60 million people. That in itself is a Holocaust itself. That is something, that's as great as any Holocaust the world has ever known.
Have you ever heard of the Mayatha?
No, I haven't.
The Mayatha is our Holocaust. if you look up the Mayapa, that is the Black Holocaust. And the Mayapa, we're talking, I'm up there in 300 million. 300 losses, 300. And I already see in the comments from Bishop Talbot Swan, Native Americans correctly. They're saying they're up in the 100 million. I guess they're talking about fair skin or the whatever you call those Yakatan Native Americans. So this, I don't know where he's getting his numbers from. Where is this coming from?
Like I said, we've heard different numbers on it as well too. I mean, I've heard growing up, I've heard anywhere from, I've heard safe estimates anywhere from 20 million to 100 million Black people died just on the transatlantic slave trade. So, I've heard different estimates my whole life. I don't really know what's concrete or whatnot, but I've heard safe numbers where they say 20 million. I'm like, okay, that sounds a little low. And then I've heard as much as 100 million. So, I'm not exactly sure. I couldn't validate it myself because I don't know. So, but
I'm asking a question because are you saying, you say slave trade, you're saying on the boats over here? The slave trade in general, you gotta talk from 1526 to the 1800s. Come on, man, that's 70 million. That's like in 1 year. We got an article that they killed 40 million Black people between 1970 to 1990. We got that information.
Well, I think he's mentioning. I think one comment that he put in there. He's talking about the actual Atlantic slave trade. So now, when you start, like you say, you start factoring everything else that came along with the transatlantic slave trade. I'm sure those numbers are higher, but I think he may just be mentioning just the actual shipping of actual Black people from Africa to the Americas or whatever. I think that's what he may be talking about.
I'm saying, is he factoring Caribbeans or is he factoring?
No. He said Africans. He didn't say Black Americans. He didn't say Brazilians. He said Africans. He didn't.
He's wrong.
Yeah. So he.
If it's 60, what he said, 60 million Black people die within 400 years from slave trafficking. From what about the killings on African soil? Some of them didn't make it to the slave ship. Then you got to factor in on the slave ship who got thrown off the ship. Then you got to factor in who survived the ship. Then you got to factor in who got killed within the 400 years on the land that they were sold. This 600 million that'll happen within.
So let me give me an estimate of what you believe the amount of Black people that died in those 400 years of the actual transatlantic slave trade.
I think about 300 million people.
300 million people. I mean, listen.
I heard John Henry Clark talk about it. It's about 300 million. Matter of fact, Dick Gregory mentioned the number. It's about 300 million people. Matter of fact, we're undercounted in America. Y'all really think there's only 40 million Black people in America? That's laughable. Only 40 million Black people in America. That's a laughable statement. As much as Black people procreate. The term baby mama and baby daddy attached to us. When you think of a Black woman, you think of procreation. We've been turned 40 million for how many years? We've been at 40 million for how many years? How many years have been at 40 million? It's been over decades since we've been at 40 million. We got to start thinking critically now. But I've been talking a lot. Go ahead, y'all.
Well, let me go ahead and be more, and then Ray, y'all go ahead and unmute your mic.
You want to go first, be more?
I think B-More must have dropped down, so go ahead, Ray.
I was just going to speak to what Brother B-More was talking about, just not conspiracies, but things that happen, a lot of stuff that we didn't know about. Like, he was speaking about Dick Gregory, or someone was speaking about Dick Gregory, and there was a tape that I saw that Dick Gregory put out, obviously, while he was still alive, when he was talking about Martin Luther King's assassination, and Martin Luther King's assassination and stuff. And there was a reverend, I forget his name, I think his name was Reverend Kyle. I'm kind of trying to ring on top of my head. And he was talking about, Reverend Kyle was talking about, what happened that day, what was him and Dr. King talking about, what happened. And Reverend Kyle, before MLK was shot, he said, right as the shot was getting ready to ring out, I took 2 steps away so he could have a clear shot. And Dick Gregory Paulson, he said he obviously knew Dr. King was going to be shot because obviously, like you said, he moved over so he could get a clear shot. If I can find that, it's about 40 seconds, 40, 50 seconds. If I can find that, I'm gonna post that in the Jumbotron because growing up, I never heard about that. I didn't learn about that until I was an adult. And it's something that I think everyone should know about Thailand.
Real quick too, just getting back to what Bishop Talbot said, and you know what. I'm sure he could be off about his numbers and this and that. Like I say, at this point, it's an estimate because nobody really knows concrete exactly how many bodies was actually when you look at the continent and the travel and everything else, just the distribution throughout the world, how many was actually killed and stuff. But I think the issue, what he's trying to say is, and he's putting numbers out there. He's saying that out of all the people in the world, you're the last people that should be sitting up here talking about black on black crime. Like that's what he's really hammering home. Like, hey, when you look at all the amount of people that you've killed from different races, as well as your own race, because let's be for real, most of the people that died in World War I and World War II, a lot of those people were white people and stuff like that as well. So he's factoring in when you look at all of the actual murders and stuff that's taken place in the past 200 years or 300 or 400 years and stuff like that. Like, you're really in no position to be sitting up here talking about black on black crime and black on black this and that is the biggest issue and the biggest problem in the country. So I think that's really, and even that article I read and stuff like that, and like you say, you have to take numbers with a grain of salt when they're saying that, because that article was back in 2000, claiming that 83% of white people are murdered by white people, whatever. I'm pretty sure, just like when you have just like you have 90% of them being killed by black people, I'm pretty sure 90% of white people being murdered by other white people. So let's just be honest. I mean, they're not going to come out here and say that, because then that would look at epidemic levels of them as well too. We can sit up here and say, black people this, and that black on black crime is the only label that gets stuck on any other group in this country. You don't hear it about Asians, you don't hear about Latinos, you don't hear about anybody. Only black on black crime. That's the only crime you hear about. There is no other. There's no Asian on Asian crime. There's no white on white crime. There's no Latino on Latino crime. It's only black crime. So I think Bishop Talbot, whether his numbers added up or not, the man put up for what he put up or what he estimates, those are astronomical numbers nonetheless. Now, yeah, I'm pretty sure if we were to really dig in the past 1,000 years, I wouldn't doubt if 1 billion people they wouldn't have on their death toll. I mean, to be honest, if you want to include Asia, Africa, and the New World, as well as their own people and all the wars and stuff they cast over there, I wouldn't doubt if you may not be reaching 1 billion people. But just the fact that, like, he's just trying to say that, hey, while you're finger pointing and talking about the issues with black Americans just killing each other left and right, this and that, like, hey, you've killed more of your own people and more of other people than anybody else. So before we start finger pointing and talking about black people this and black people that, look in the mirror. Winter reigns. I know this is going to be pretty interesting. I see your profile is also changed too. So what's going on?
Well, my profile has changed to the what's his name, Sam, that does stole all the rich people money again. Bernie Madoff with a bigger lesson, but okay. So anyway, as I was listening to the conversation, at what point do you think that somebody wants to be taken advantage of? At what point do you think that somebody deserves to be taken advantage of? Based on the conversation I heard, well, the black people in Africa was taken advantage of. Well, the black Americans done been there. When will people stand up for themselves and say enough is enough and do what they need to do?
And what do you think that black people should do exactly? Tell me. But I know you say stand up. Exactly. What does standing up mean exactly?
I think standing up means that we don't need your economic system. We know how to grow our own food. I'll give you a good example. You know what's going on in Zimbabwe right now? Zimbabwe and Nigeria. They're refusing to sell lithium anymore to these Tesla companies because Guess where lithium comes from? Zimbabwe, Africa, all resources. And now you finally have the leaders in Zimbabwe and the leaders, a couple of leaders in Nigeria. They're a little sketchy. But they're like, either you're not going to plunder our land anymore. Either you, because we have the resources, either you go under our guidelines to get your lithium batteries that you need for your energy cars or whatever. But we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to do it. So I would challenge you to Google what's going on in Zimbabwe. It's a
I'm sorry, sister, but didn't they accept the money to give up?
No. It's about lithium, honey. It's about lithium.
No. I heard what you said with lithium, but I'm saying there's another thing on the side that all of the African countries signed on. What was that? $5 billion for America to come over there to get the cobalt. The cobalt is
what is it? I'm gonna let you finish. Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound like Kanye, but I'm gonna let you finish. I'm sorry.
No, I'm letting you. I'm just saying. Okay, if they did, what's up? Cobalt.
No. There's nothing. There's nothing worse more than lithium. You can't run electric cars unless you have lithium. You can't run that outside.
Oh, but a lot of people don't allow electric cars. Yeah.
Well, that's where they're trying to go to. You have to understand. That's what they're trying to move things forward on. And with Zimbabwe.
Let me ask you one question. Each and every one of us on this we have a cell phone, right? You can talk to a cell phone. That cell phone is built with cobalt. You know that, right?
Okay.
So cobalt has to be worth more than this. It has to be.
It's not.
Well, every one of us, I can guarantee none of us got an electric car. None of us have an electric car. All of us have a cell phone.
Well, the thing about it is you have to understand, well, you don't have to understand, but just the future technology and things that are going on, everything is going to be run off of lithium batteries. Lithium. Tesla. Your favorite person, Elon Musk, who's decided to do 1,000 idiotic things, whatever. It is crazy to be a billionaire that can lose $44 billion for buying some bullshit and still be a billionaire. But he still is. And he still owns Tesla. Tesla and electric cars run off of lithium. They run off of lithium. And guess where the gold mine of lithium is? Zimbabwe. And guess what the government of Zimbabwe is doing right now? You cannot come to my country anymore and take my resources to make yourself rich without paying my people. So there's a lot of stuff going on geopolitically that we don't get told in our little square of what America was like to tell us.
I had to look that up. The Zimbabwe lithium mine is owned by EC Ventures. There's a main lithium mine in Zimbabwe.
Did I say anything incorrect?
Yeah, I think that with they don't own their lithium mines. They don't own it.
Who doesn't own it?
The Zimbabweans. They sold it.
Okay, and what you have to, and the government is trying to take it back. That's the point. That's the point I was just making.
No. I'm saying that the government doesn't have to do that because it owns it. They're giving it to the government.
Where's the lithium? No. I don't have to look up anything. Where's the lithium? Where do you spend the lithium? It's in Zimbabwe.
Okay, real quick, and when I want to ask you this here too, because like I said, I know you were saying that we don't need this.
You have to get it from the natural resources in the continent and country.
Hey, real quick, Winner.
In the first place.
Okay, real quick. I don't mean to talk over you. I don't mean to mute you, but I just want to ask a question too. And I know we were talking about the resources and stuff in Africa and this and that and whatnot, but in terms of impacting Black Americans right here in the United States of America, we're dealing with, like I say, we're constantly blasted by the media for the black on black crimes and stuff like that. And I know you're saying, well, it doesn't matter and this and that or whatever, but exactly, because the media has such a mind control over the individuals and stuff like that, where everybody believes that black people just going around just shooting each other left and right. And we know that there's violence in the black community. We know there's violence in every community, but just in terms of the white on white crime, like I said, because I know you're talking about, well, this happened to people here in Africa and this happened to us here. I'm saying about the actual white on white crime itself, because over 80 some odd percent of white people are murdered at the hands of other white people. That's something white people don't really talk about. They talk about 90% of black people are going to be killed by black people and this and that, but they don't talk about damn near, and they can say what they want to. I believe it's right at 90%. If you look at from the time this country was founded, when black people were slaves and this and that, and black people were segregated, the white people that were dying and stuff, they were dying at the hands of white folks. And I don't think that has drastically changed that much. Yeah, you have because you have people living closer together and stuff. I'm sure you have black people murdering white folks. I'm not saying you don't. But I'm saying, what about the white on white crime, as a title of the actual room and stuff like that? What do you feel about that?
Well, if you want to go on a white on white crime, then you have to go to the white on white media.
You have to go to white on white. What? I'm sorry.
You have to go to the media. They make it seem as if black people don't own no media. Black people don't own. The Murdoch family owns the media. Goddamn, even in Atlanta, they don't own the narrative that's created. So it makes it seem as if you watch the news. Oh, another black person killed another black person. They never take it to the trailer parks. They never take it to the methamphetamine shops. They never take it to the opioid dealers. They never do that. Because we don't own nothing. So the narrative is already created. Yet I can sit down in a county jail as a volunteer and talk to 30 white girls that are addicted to methamphetamine as a part of what I want to do. But you ain't gonna see that on the news. Because the news not owned by black people. They just gonna keep saying that, oh, crack is bad, crack is bad. Just as
Newstoter.com.
Oh. I've been down to that county jail in Habersham County. Habersham County. Talking to them girls, trying to get them off meth. They don't put that on the news though. Well, let me go talk to the girls in Clayco on some crack. They'll put that all over the media.
I think the grassroots control the media now. I don't think the media, it used to be the source of what we believe, but now look at what Newstoter is doing in other spaces. We take the narrative of the media, and now we're having a real conversation, and we're getting down to business of what is really happening. That used to be the source, and some things can be true, but it isn't the end all be all media now. There's other brand media businesses, and maybe this is the start of it. We're witnessing the beginning of it, but I don't think that they control the narrative no more because people know they're full of shit.
Agree, and I get what she's saying as well. Like the huge media conglomerates are still owned by white folks, but like you say, brother, like yeah, you got these smaller black owned, and whether it's a news site or whether it's just people that just do the commentators and stuff like that. Everybody in this space, is a curator to a certain degree. So everybody is changing the actual conversation as well too. We don't have a CNN or a NBC or a CBS, anything of that level. We could have it easily if we pulled our resources together. And not only that, we have black people in this country that have the money and stuff, the resources to go ahead and actually do that. So we could go ahead and definitely have those type of media outlets and things, platforms of that nature, if we're willing to go ahead and actually, invest in them. But like you said, like this isn't what 20, 30 years ago. But my thing is that, like I say, the white on white crime, that's something that really gets swept under the rug. It's always about black people. And then they'll throw in the black and brown as well, too. They'll throw that in. They'll say, well, black and Latinos and stuff like that. So they will go ahead and they will mix the Latinos in there with us as well, too. But preferably, you don't hear them. You never hear them say Latinos are killing Latinos at a staggering rate. Like if you're a 25-year-old Latino, you're more likely to be killed at the hands of another Latino. They never say that kind of stuff. So as much as they want to lump Latinos in there with black Americans and stuff like that, they don't lump them in there all the way. They make sure that they're careful how they go ahead and they word the way they talk about them, how they die and this and that or whatever. They don't say if you're Latino, you're 18 to 34, you're more likely to die at the hands of gun violence or anything like that. They never say that. They say that for one group and one group only, and that's black Americans. So that was the point of just trying to talk about that as well too. That we're definitely being the ones that's always put up there with the face of just black on black crime, and that no other group of people kill each other, when we know historically people that live next to each other commit crimes against each other. And it's always been that way in every community that's ever existed. It has always been that way, and it always will be that way. Kick it to you. Let me kick it to you, Ray, real quick. And I said we got original up here as well, too, y'all. In the Jumbotron, I put all of those articles that I read, and I am going to touch on the George Santos as well, too. Like this cat is a character here, so I got to touch up on this dude right here, Republican congressman in New York. Got to touch up on George as well, too. So Ray and then original, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to touch up on George. But as always, y'all know in the Newstoter space, you're free to go back to the white on white crime and also Christianity and mass exodus. I know we have a bunch of Christians and people of faith in the actual space. So please share with us your ideas and your reasoning why you think that maybe we're seeing this big exodus from the Christian church here in America. That and not only it doesn't seem just in America, it seems globally as well, that you're starting to have a lot of people leave from the actual Christianity. Now, and could that be also all of the Abrahamic religions, Islam and Judaism as well as Christianity? I don't know, but is time changing? Are we in the information age, like the brother said earlier? Are we in the age of science as well, where people, just don't believe certain things, that they think that things that was talked about 2,500 years ago is just superstition and whatnot? So please share any of your insights that you feel on Christianity, on George Santos. I'm gonna touch up on this dude as well too, because like I said, he's a character in white on white crime. Go ahead, Ray, and then we're gonna kick it to you, original.
I'm gonna be real quick. I just wanted to. It was something you said earlier about basically you don't think you knew how many slaves they had, killed or whatever. I believe that they personally do know, because obviously, they kept a lot of records and stuff for all the slaves that come over here, because all the slaves had to be insured, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to give you a little pushback on that, because I really truly believe they know exactly how many they killed, how many black people they killed. But, obviously, they're not going to really tell us the true number of how many people they killed. They want to make it seem like the Holocaust is, has been the greatest atrocity. But, obviously, if we pull out our records, we show them, hey, I don't know how many died in the Holocaust, you got 3 times as much. It's going to make them in our land now.
No, I don't believe, Ray, that they even know the amount that they killed either, because they killed that many people during the actual slave trade. And people would talk about sometimes the slave ships where you had people, crews revolted and some of them ended up dying and stuff like that. I believe you had times, and many times you had some of those crews revolted and killed everybody on the damn ship, including the actual captains and everything else. Some of those ships got lost at shipwreck and died. You could have had 40, 50 slaves on those ships and stuff like that. I really don't think they really know. For all we know, it could have been 500 million people that died during the transatlantic slave trade. You know, I definitely believe that you're talking about over 100 million easily. It could have been 500 million people. When the actual slave trade, it depopulated Africa so much that it took Africa hundreds of years to get its population back up to snuff. That's how bad it was. So if you, and I know the brother, I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name, brother. I'm sorry about that. But if you look at with the actual Arabs and the actual Europeans and stuff like that with their slave trades, who knows how many hundreds of millions of people? You talk about the Arabs was doing it for 1,000 years. I mean, so ain't no telling how many people that they actually killed. When you think about all the black people they brought over here that died of malaria, working in these swamps and stuff like that, got worked to death. Women that was giving birth to kids, and because they was treated so bad, those kids died at birth and stuff like that. I know people say, well, they were the property, they treated them good and this and that. Not necessarily. They treated them just well enough to keep them alive, keep them fed so they can go out there and they can work. And they worked them to death because they believed that they were nothing more than a damn horse and that they could take it. They were from a certain part of the country, a certain part of the world, excuse me. They were tougher than most things. They weren't even really a human being and this and that. So however we treat them, we can treat them however we want to, and they'll survive. I personally don't believe that they even know how many. I think they have a rough number, but like I said, you could be talking about 500 million people that got killed during this process. You got it, original. Go ahead and unmute your mic, bro.
Good evening, everybody. Peace, black power, and reparation for U.S. chattel slavery. Newstoter, you were right. Now, the Arabs are still enslaving people. Now, you find, because what I encountered, as I said before, when I mentioned something on a radio station here, and this black Muslim decided to attack me. But then once I began to dump my research, he all of a sudden he wanted to talk. Not too late now, but it was in 1960 or 61. I'm trying to think, when was John F. Kennedy killed? It was before he was assassinated. John F. Kennedy had to tell this guy he was in Saudi Arabia. His name was Saud or whatever his name was. He told him, you gotta quit this. They were still enslaving black, and they are still doing it now. And he told that guy that he needed to quit. He needed to stop enslaving black folks. And this was in the 1960s. So when a lot of people who are, Muslim or whatever, they'll lie and defend. The saddest part is that they will lie and defend their belief system. And as I tell people all the time, until you prove to me, I don't walk with the atheists. I don't believe in atheism, no. But I tell people, if you're going to tell me that your God exists, I need you to prove it to me. And the surefire way that I want you to prove it to me, like King Kamehameha said, when the white Christians came to Hawaii and they kept pressuring him to convert to Christianity, but he knew it would corrupt his people, he said, I want you to jump off this cliff and let me see if your God saved you. Nobody jumped. Because they knew the gig would be up. And I think the reason now that so many young people are moving away and they understand, look, if I just live a just life, I'm going to be okay. Because they've been giving them these Abrahamic religions, whether it be Judaism, Catholicism, Islam, Christianity, or whatever. They see now that those belief systems are hypocritical. No one can tell you. I got this book I've been trying. Every time I start reading it, I get distracted from it. But the book is called "The Africans Who Wrote the Bible," and it goes back. Cause see, these principles were written it took thousands and thousands of years to develop these systems. And I know everybody like to talk about Egypt, but this stuff was developed. It's like the what they call the Medu Neter, what they call the hieroglyphics. That was developed down in the Kush Empire, and it came up to Egypt.
That's how that works. But see, you have a lot of people, they just go with what the preacher says, and hell, the preacher don't even know a damn thing for the most part. And so, yeah, so you have this whereby, and now that what we're now like the age of Aquarius, the age of knowledge and information and truth. This is why people are having issues now, because we have true black media like Newstoter here, whereby he researches and he puts out the truth with DJ and Ray, and plus other callers that come into the space. And so the regular media now, they are fighting, because if you notice now, they were trying to say at one point, you can't believe what you hear on the internet. Well, I can't believe what I hear on TV on the news, because there was an issue here in Atlanta whereby this brother, he was an eyewitness to an incident. So the Channel 2 News is the ABC station, Channel 2 WSB here in Atlanta. They knocked on the brother's door and wanted to interview him. He said, listen, can you come back in about an hour? I'm trying to get myself together and I can talk with you. What they did was they just went out and got another black. And so his family began to call Channel 2, WSB, and then they called into a local talk show here, and they exposed WSB for the lie that they was promoting, stating that guy was the actual eyewitness, and the family shut that down real quick. So this is why and I'm proud of these young people today. I said, get out there and do your thing, because we cannot trust the old news, whether it be black, white, or whatever. The old news cannot be trusted. They are about myth and lies. And so I just want to put that out there, because people need to understand is that they're going to continue to attack the truth that's coming up. Now, there are some people on the internet that's putting out lies. Yes, they do. But I would say for the new black media, they understand that if they put something out that's not correct, it's not only going to have an effect on that particular talk format, but it's going to have an effect on all the other new black medias, because they'll just pump it up and say, oh, they're lying. So I just want to say that, because we have to be the defender of our truth. No one else is going to do that. And I will say this to Newstoter. It was several years ago, was one of these FBI reports, and it stated truthfully that it was like 80-something% of white people are killed by other white people. But like you said, they don't put that out in the news. They want to, for whatever reason, they want to harp on black people as if we are the worst of the worst. But remember when I told you about those 3 components of that survey that they conducted on black people? They said we watch more TV than any other group. We talk on the phone longer than any other group. But the third one, which is key and critical to our survival, they said we were the most loyal than all the groups here in this country. So that means what? We have a moral compass that nobody else can touch. You see? And so people need to stop with their lies, because, see, there's nothing wrong with us. It's the white folks and others and the other fools who follow them, and unfortunately some of them look like us. Okay? But that is what's happening with this. Because but like I said, if a lot of the children, because I have a neighbor, she says she's not into Christianity. I think she's a practicing Buddhist now. But there are so many people that I encounter that they have left what is called the traditional religion. And even this was like several years ago, there was an article that came out, it was in NBC News. Even the Catholics, the Catholic people are saying that what they call the head of the Catholic Church, they said that Jesus wasn't coming back. And they said they didn't know. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So you're talking about the Pope.
Yeah, of the Pope. Yeah, they said that that Jesus wasn't coming back. That they didn't know. They said because see, again, these things they were developed thousands of years ago, and these are myths and allegories. That what people have white people manifested them into being real people, but they did it in a manner that would benefit them. You know, there is a documentary. It's called Out of Darkness. If you look at the Out of Darkness Volume 1, it documents this very well about how it has Professor James Small, Brother Dr. Kaba Khomeini, and a number of others. David Banner is in it. And I sit there and watch it. And when I watch it, I try to take as many notes as I can, and I watch it again. But people need to understand a lot of this stuff that has to do with religion, because people don't know. As I told you before, Newstoter, when Ahmaud Arbery was murdered, and when he came through, Ahmaud was pissed. He said, "I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them." And so the individual that he came before said, "Listen, okay, brother, please, okay, I understand, brother, but listen, I need you to go with them people right over there. They're going to help you get them." And see, and if you recall now, Brother Newstoter, when the DOJ tried to give them white folks a get out of jail free card and was going to let them serve their federal time before their state time, see, that was Ahmaud working that courtroom through his family, saying, "No, they're going to state prison, then they can go to federal prison." And he got them because that's what he said. He said, "I am going to get them." And they got. And I'm going to land on that.
Definitely appreciate that original. Yeah, they were trying to go ahead and they gonna tell the judge, they're gonna tell everybody what type of prison time they deserve to get. They're gonna sit up and tell people what kind of time they want the Fed time because they figure that's softer time. Go ahead, DJ.
No, I was just saying I appreciate Original for always telling that story. That's all, man. We definitely making the brother think on that level, man. You know what I mean? Because like some of these religions do say, if your soul leave this world angry, it'll never pass through the white light. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, mine pissed the fuck off.
Anytime that brother come in here, man, speaking of original, I always learn something, man. Like I said, every time I come here, every day, man, somebody's always dropping some good information, man. I appreciate y'all.
As always, we gonna baby sister. I'm gonna get to you. I want to go ahead and touch up on this article with George Santos real quick, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get to you. So just give me 1 second, and we're gonna touch up on this, and then you guys can go ahead and I see a couple hands up. Y'all can go ahead and get back to the main topics you want to. If you want to talk about white on white crime, if you want to talk about Christianity, I know Original. He's one that I knew he was going to touch up on the Christianity aspect as well too, along with the white crime. So I definitely appreciate that. This article is newly elected New York Congressman fake being Jewish and misrepresented finances to get elected. That's in the Jumbotron as well, too, guys. If you want to go ahead and read that, that's curated on the Newstoter.com platform. George Santos is a Republican politician from Long Island, New York, who was recently elected to represent New York's 3rd congressional district. Santos, 34, has admitted to embellishing his work and educational resume. He also allegedly misled people into believing he was Jewish. New York's 3rd congressional district covers cities such as Oyster Bay and New Rochelle. Long Island is the 4th largest Jewish community in the U.S. after New York City, L.A., and South Florida, with over 300,000 Jewish residents. Long Island's population is about 12% Jewish. In his initial campaign video, Santos said, "My grandparents survived the Holocaust." On November 19th, while addressing Republican Jewish Coalition, Santos said that his grandfather fled Ukraine for Belgium and then immigrated to Brazil. He has publicly referred to himself as half Jewish and Latino Jew. During his campaign, he wrote in a position paper obtained by the nonprofit Jewish news website Forward that he was a proud American Jew. He has since said he never claimed to be Jewish, but he rather asserted he was Jewish, Politico reported. But a report last week by Jewish Insider cited genealogists who said Santos' maternal grandmother and grandfather were probably Brazilians. Santos now said he is clearly Catholic, but that his grandmother has said she was Jewish and converted to Catholicism. His heritage isn't the only thing Santos seems to have fudged. The New York Times recently raised questions about the Truth Santos campaign biography. In it, Santos claimed that he worked for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup. Spokesmen for both companies confirmed to the Washington Post that they had no record of his employment. Santos has admitted in a series of interviews that he lied about graduating from college and working for Citigroup or Goldman Sachs. He also acknowledged owing thousands of dollars of unpaid rent, but he denied committing a crime anywhere in the world. Although a New York Times report says the contrary, according to the newspaper, while in Brazil in 2008, a 19-year-old Santos stole a checkbook of a man his mother was caring for. Brazilian court records uncovered by the Times claim Santos used a checkbook to make fraudulent purchases. Santos reportedly later confessed to the crime and was charged. He did admit he did make a resume embellishment in a WABC radio interview on December 26. He pushed off his actions by saying that a lot of people overstate in their resumes. Santos said, "If I disappointed anyone about my resume embellishment, I'm sorry." And he vowed that I will be sworn in, I will take office. He added that, contrary to his campaign biography, I didn't graduate from any institution of higher learning. Also under question is his wealth, which skyrocketed in the past several years to enable him to lend hundreds of thousands of dollars to his campaign. He lent his campaign at least $580,000 and his political action committee at least $27,000, according to Federal Election Commission filings. In his first campaign for the House in 2020, his financial disclosure showed no assets or earned income and only cited a commission worth more than $5,000. But on his 2022 financial disclosure, he said he was worth millions of dollars, with most of his wealth coming from a Florida company he owned, the Devolder organization, according to his campaign website. Devolder was a privately held family firm that had 80 million in assets under management. The claim that has since been removed. Santos launched the company in May 2021, 1 month before he declared his latest candidacy. A little more than a year later, on July 30th, 2022, the financial data company Dun and Bradstreet estimated that Devolder had a revenue of only $43,688, not millions. However, on September 6th, his financial disclosure report with the clerk of the U.S. House said the Devolder organization paid him an annual salary of $750,000 in 2021 and 2022, and that the company is worth between $1 and $5 million. Santos' election helped give Republicans a narrow majority in the House, and now the GOP has been silent on the scandal, the New York Times report. Democrats, however, are called for Santos to resign seat over the resume lies. So, like I said, I just wanted y'all to hear about this cat here. He's a character, to say the least. So, baby sister, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it to you. Go ahead and unmute your mic. Before you go ahead and unmute your mic, y'all, make sure you guys are following Newstoter. If you're in the space and you're not following Newstoter, make sure you follow the host and the co-host as well. Also support us if you can on Cash App. That's $Newstoter, $Newstoter. If you don't have a Cash App, you can support us on PayPal or Venmo. That's also in the Jumbotron as well. Baby sister, go ahead and unmute your mic.
Peace and reparations, family. Santos is going to be exposed as like a one-eyed octopus. I mean, anything he says, I don't know what this man is thinking, but I guess if you can do it to your own people and lie to them, but I think maybe the Jews should have been more concerned about people saying that they're Jewish instead of sniffing around us, always trying to chastise us. So maybe if they had been focused, they would have caught this. But I digress. The brother he mentioned something about when we were talking about the totality of our people being murdered. Did he say Yapa? So somebody can let me know. He said something about.
I said Mayapa.
Could you spell that for me?
That's M-A-A-F-A.
M-A-F-A.
M-A-A-F-A.
M-A-A-F-A. Thank you, sweetheart. Okay. They're going to get another black person to try to impersonate another black person. See, that blows my mind. And I often wonder why BNC, Black News Channel, I think it was, why did they just go off so quick? besides the fact that when things were happening, they really didn't touch on it like a black news channel would, because we know that they were owned by some Iranian guy or whatever. But they sure got out quick in a hurry when shit got real serious. Because there's no way, like we're saying right now, if you don't tell us what we know is happening, don't try to continually try to bullshit us. So there would have been no way BNC could have continued without giving us solid news for black people. So, I never understood why they never did that when they were doing it. But I repost a lot of white on white crime. There was a couple of things I posted, and these people, you got to see it. They were swinging. I mean, I was all, damn, Jeff, Jimmy, they were going at it. So when I see something about white on white crime, I reposted it. And please feel free to repost it. And if you see something good, tag my black ass in it. And then lastly, for the young man who was just murdered, it depends on what time of day it is right now. It's so frequent, which really pisses me off for me to even say that. But the young brother that was murdered, any of us, when these kids are murdered, how come the schools, the principal, the other parents, because there's nobody racist, why don't the schools or the stores where these people shop at, the moms and the fathers, they go into certain stores all the time. We never hear anything other than the courts. But there's more things besides the church, besides the court systems. These kids go to school. What about the other kids that don't see them anymore? So I think there should be a lot more spreadable accountability that we're not even touching on. Because I'm so sick of them always saying this is what's happening, but there's no other normal places speaking up. So I just say that maybe something to think about. But yeah, the 55 billion that we gave them, I want my 50 cent back. Remember how we used to send 50 cents to Africans? They got 55 billion. I want my damn money back. Since they came up like that, and when they're, I don't know what you're saying about where shit is coming from, but it's. I just tweeted that it's really coinciding how now they got testosterone flowing through their body because they just got 55 billion, and now they shit don't stink. But we'll see how America treats them. It won't be long before they're put on the back burner, as they say. So good luck with that, Africa. You should keep your shit. You're the richest country in the world, but you always got your hand out and your ass kicked. Whatever. I'll end my plane.
All right. I believe the brother, say your name one more time for me. I'm sorry.
It's Ani.
Ani. Okay. Ani, go ahead, brother, and unmute your mic.
Oh no, I was just commenting earlier when he was speaking on with Christianity, but I'm gonna just chill back and listen for a second, so you can let Ray go.
Okay, no problem, no problem. If you want to talk about if you also want to mention anything that I talked about George Santos as well, y'all. Like I said, we got 3 topics we talking on white on white crime, Christianity, the mass exodus, bunch of people they say by 2070, and of course we know a lot of us won't be alive by 2070, but by 2070 they're talking about how the nation's going to look in terms of Christians and stuff like that. The amount of the numbers that's going to actually just dwindle down. And then you guys heard about George Santos, like in everything that he's pulling off, and the Democrats are trying to get him to resign. The Republicans are pretty numb, pretty quiet on it. They want to keep as much keep as many people in Congress as possible. So right now they're not really even mentioning it. So just to let you guys know, for anybody that wants to speak and anybody that hadn't had a chance to speak tonight in the space as well too, please come on up here and speak. We definitely want to hear you.
Newstoter, is that his real name, George Santos? I mean, I'm just saying.
That's his name.
Well, he lied so damn much. It probably ain't his real name.
Yeah, because he's supposed to be. Let this dude tell it. He's supposed to be half. He's supposed to be half Jewish and he half Latino, and I don't know how. I don't.
Well, he's full of shit. How about that?
Well, he went by so he claims that his family during World War II.
He's alive. He's alive. He's alive.
Hold on a second. I'm going through something. So he claimed that his family through World War II fled from Ukraine, then went to Brazil. And
Lie.
Ukrainian. We understand that, sister. We know he's lying. We all agree with you. Just going through the information. So, one thing interesting that you probably didn't find about this, did you look up a post where he's been accused of racism? This guy back in 2014, I'm gonna put the post in a second in the Jumbotron. He tweeted a picture of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama with monkey faces, and he was called out for it. And he went and responded and said that, how can I be racist when my father is black? He didn't call his father a Latino. And I'm going to put that into the Jumbotron. So this guy is full operative now when they said that when he claimed to be Jewish and that his mother switched to Catholicism, I believe he's talking about being a Jesuit, because the Jesuits, you look up the history of the Jesuits, they're Jewish and they're Catholic. So I think that's what he meant by that. But you can just see that this guy has vitriol for melanated people to lie to that extent, even with a name like Santos, which he went by another name. When he came over in immigration, he went by the name Anthony Zembrowski, because his full name is George Anthony Delvedere Santos. But he went by another name at another time, Anthony Zembrowski. So yeah, this guy is a case right here.
Yeah, I did not know that, brother. So yeah, he just basically, what you're saying is just flip flopping. One minute he's black when it's convenient, when he's getting called out on racism, then he's Jewish, then he's Latino. So he's just constantly flip flopping whenever he's getting called on his BS. Is basically what you're telling us. Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important thing to understand is that he has a congressional seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, and he is GOP, and I think people really need to understand what's going on. The GOP has unleashed the gates of, if you are a criminal, white collar criminal, maybe a blue collar criminal trying to get in, then they will support you. They supported Trump. They supported Herschel Walker. They supported Dr. Oz. They supported all that. We are going a whole nother level of where America democracy is going to be nothing more than Venezuela, Sri Lanka, every country that CNN International tells you, oh, that's a bad country to go to, because their politicians are. We are becoming that country. We are becoming an awful, awful place to live in. I'm moving this way.
Hey, Winter, just a quick question. Have you been drinking a little bit tonight, sweetie?
I'm good, like everybody else is good.
Well, I'm just asking. I mean, you sound a little different than what you normally sound. So I was just wondering if ain't nothing wrong with it having a look.
Don't take no different. You can Google everything I say. Look at Switzerland. Look at what's going on. Look at what's going on in the world.
Nah, listen. I had a look. I was listen. Earlier, I was watching the Florida State game tonight, and I had a little something to drink. I had a little drink on me. So I mean, it's no crime or nothing. Yeah, it's no crime. I just was wondering if you had a little drink in you, sister. That's all.
It doesn't matter because everybody can have a little drink. Everybody can watch a sports game because that's all they want y'all to do. They want y'all to do. going on.
Hey.
It sound funny, but whatever.
Okay. Sister, we all I did was ask a question. I did it out of love. I mean, don't get offended. I mean, I didn't mean no harm by it. Okay, like I say, I myself was watching the game tonight, entertaining game, and I had a little drink earlier myself as well too. So I mean, it's nothing wrong, drinking responsibly.
Can I ask a question now? You know the snowstorm that came up, right? The blizzard that came up.
Yes, ma'am. I tweeted out it a couple of times in the past few days.
Yeah, in Buffalo, real Buffalo. It hit in Buffalo, New York. And you know what they brought out military grade to clear the road. Do you not understand that upgrade equipment is at every police department? It's police department, military. Come on.
Yeah, we understand. We understand that the United States police have militarized weapons. We definitely understand that. Like we talk about that, and we've talked about it in spaces quite a few times. So yeah, we know that they the cops are militarized. We definitely understand that, sister. So I'm definitely in support with you on that too. Like we don't think they should be militarized. I mean, but they are. I mean, I'm not for it. We talked about them also out there in San Francisco trying to get, and not to get off topic because I'm gonna get to you trouble because I know you've been waiting. But
do you ask yourself why? Why?
Yeah, we know why. To keep the Negroes in check. We know why. I mean, what else would they have?
That's not why.
Yeah, that kind of is why, love. That's kind of that. That kind of is why. The entire the whole backing of having a police department in this country was to keep Negroes in check from when they left their slave patrols and everything else. That's kind of why. That's kind of why.
Yeah, that's something. News is you're 100% on that because I want to say when they started bundling the whole, they started the whole war on drugs. That's when they started getting all that militarized stuff.
Let me go ahead, but I appreciate you, sister. I didn't, like I say, no harm. Didn't mean no harm, anything like that. Ray, I'm gonna get to you too. Let me Trouble. She's been waiting, so I gotta hear my sister Trouble. I gotta hear her go in. So Trouble, what's going on tonight? How you doing, sister?
Hey, Newstoter. Shout out to the group. Much love to everybody. How y'all doing up in the cut?
We're doing good.
That's what's up. So I don't have a whole lot extra to add. I really agree with Ani and Original what they said about the mass exodus for Christianity. It's really just a matter of coming into this age of information where everything is being put out there. So what was once hitting is now being brought to the forefront to where we're able to do more research and have more access to information. Not only that, but I also think that with each generation, we kind of lose a little bit of something. And so it's also a matter of not bridging the gap, if you want to call it that. So whereas each generation is becoming far more removed from the church than it once was. And my great grandmothers and grandmothers' generation, going to church was a rule. It was a given. It was something that you did without thinking about. And my mother's generation as well. But as she raised us up, it was certain revelations about the church that she learned that pulled her back from it. While she continued to read her Bible on a regular basis and had us to read the Bible, and of course, in most homes, you memorize Psalms 23, the Lord's Prayer, and certain things of those nature. It would have been taboo if my grandmother had still been alive or I was still living around my great-grandmother to say that my mother allowed me to come out of the church when my sins was on me at the age of 12. That wasn't happening back in her days. So then as I raised my kids, I didn't raise them in the church necessarily like that at all. So the concept is foreign to them. So I think it's also not just, the age of information, but also we each generation, we kind of get away from a little bit of something as well. As far as the white on white crime, that's the original black on black crime. We talk about black on black crime, while white folks talk about black on black crime, so that we don't have to talk about white on white crime. And we all know that the white folks were the originators of said crimes, and they continue to do crimes not only on this continent but all continents. George Santos. He's a whole trip. I was just reading an article earlier that was talking about how he even lied about his mother's death, which is so funny to me.
He lied about, well, hold on, not to cut you off, Trouble. This joker lied about his mama's death as well.
Yeah, he said first he pinned a post saying that his mom had was a victim of 9/11. She died on for 9/11, and then on another post they brought up saying I think like on the 23rd of December, he had a post saying that he lost his best friend on this particular day. So he was trying to snap at somebody on 9/11 and say that he wasn't entertaining any more of these 9/11 posts because that's when he lost his mom. So beyond all of the crimes that he has done, from lying about his finances to claiming to be another race to just being a total dick altogether, he really brought it all the way home when he lied on his mother's death. So if you can believe, you know what I'm saying, right? So it's like,
I'm sorry, I had to jump in on that one. I mean, man, that's a hell of a lot of tell.
Okay, that's a hell of a lot of tell because who lies on their mother's death? If you're gonna tell the truth about anything, you would think that would be the one thing that you would tell the truth about. The problem is, it seems like with certain types of rednecks in this country, they like them old type of lies. So it's always a toss up on whether that person will win because white people live their lives on lies. So it'll be interesting to see if he wins his race or not, because some certain things like that they just don't care about because they so want that power so bad. If they don't want whatever Democrat is he's running up against get that spot, they will absolutely still go out and vote for him. Look, Herschel Walker was almost getting ready to win, and look what a bumbling idiot he was up there. So there is that, and I'm gonna fall back because I've been kind of entertained on Homegirl Gone, but yeah, I thought we were gonna hear a little bit more about some Wild Way and lithium and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and
we gotta go to Africa and get some of this
we gotta get some Tobos and stuff.
No, we gotta get some of this vibranium. That's what we
I think more than anything, she got upset because I was talking about the actual drinking or whatever, and like I tried to like let her know, like, hey, I myself had a drink myself tonight and stuff. I was watching the football game, so like, hey, it ain't against the world. Like, I mean, hey, you got a drink or whatever, hey.
we need to drink after her.
Why you be saying what we be thinking? You just need to cut it out, man.
Because everybody been posting a DM at me and texting me talking, hey, she drunk. Like, I'm like, well, yeah, she got a little something to drink.
We need a drink. We need one now. Shit.
You ain't lying.
I don't know how we went from white on white crime to doggone cobalt in Africa. She took, that's a hell of a spin right there.
Yeah, I don't know how we got to that point either, but I was just like, okay, that's why I had to bring it back up. Well, what about the actual, like, what actually going on and stuff with the media and how they depicting this white on white crime and stuff like that. So
now, are we really surprised that they're lying, y'all? They lie when their lips are moving. Like Trouble said, look, if you lie on your mama, if you just trying to skate around and you talking about you got money, you got $43 in your pocket, you talking about you millionaire, and I mean these people lie. So let's talk about when they tell the truth. That'll be a shorter conversation.
Yeah, definitely. That's what my comment was gonna be about. I just want to jump in real quick. It's not just Republicans; it's both sides. They both equally some damn big liars. Like Biden. I have video of Biden. He lied about being arrested during a civil rights march. Biden lied about his son being killed in Iraq. He lied about being.
Wait. Not to cut you off, Ray, but I thought the one son that was in the military, I thought he was killed in Iraq.
I think he was.
He died where?
Yeah, he died of cancer.
Cancer, bro.
Oh, okay.
He was in the military, yeah, that's true. He served, but he didn't die in Iraq, you know what I mean?
Yeah, hey, fun
But
fact.
y'all remember Biden came out talking about he had a homeboy who grew up with somebody named Corn Pop. So if we
Right,
know that
you know what I'm saying? Right.
Corn Pop, right? Crispy, so we know.
Kellogg, Fruity Loops, Homie
Tony niggas, you know what I'm saying? Get the homie Tony to bad great.
Well, his son had a friend called Crack. So Crack
That's true.
Yeah, his son Hunter was smoking crack when he was in the Navy. I'm not gonna get into that, but yeah, Biden obviously lied about his son being killed in Iraq. He lied about being a truck driver. Biden lied about being at the top of his class. About obviously the COVID vaccines. I mean, that's just politicians, but I mean that dude that lied about his mama lying, that's just some extra lie. Say again, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, Obama lied about being black.
Oh, so did Kamala. Kamala, the only person that you can take a Jamaican and an Indian to make African American. I don't know how they did that.
Matter of fact, Bernie Sanders is not a freedom fighter. Let's go. He ain't for reparations. You know what I'm saying? So how is you a freedom fighter running with MLK? Keep it
Real
real.
quick, Ani, go ahead and unmute your mic real quick. I see you got your hand up.
Yeah. Just commenting on what she was talking about, the woman with her. She was trying to compare and say, well, the reason why they talk about black on black crime is that Africans got together, quote unquote, because they had some type of lithium mine. And I debunked that when I looked it up. And the Chinese own that. DC Ventures, the Chinese own that lithium. And then I was like, not only that, what about cobalt? Cobalt, they just signed that shit over, a couple of weeks ago, 55 billion. The whole continent signed that for Americans to come over there and start to extract that resource that they have, that's the main foundation of Africa. That's what they brought in Obama for, which he failed at. But now they got it this year. They finally finalized it. So that's why it was she was kind of babbling. Sometimes I don't want to get on our elders, but some of our elders they babble a little bit. They babble just a little bit.
You tell the truth. That was a lot of it, right? Yeah. Like, sister, you been drinking? Well, never mind if I've been drinking. Look up the information.
And there ain't no elders, bro. There wasn't no elders. She ain't no older than me and you, most likely.
Well, maybe she had a 20-year scotch.
And with that being said, here's her theme song. Let's go.
Yeah, she was drinking some of that Mad Dog 2020. That's why you think she was an elder.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she probably was. But, but like what y'all was saying, these people lie. The politicians, it sounds like for him to lie about that much stuff, you don't hear that much stuff, that's just called out. And he has some type of political seat in New York. I can't remember which district, but he has some type of political seat. So sometimes these people got to go through these humiliation rituals. A lot of them go through those humiliation rituals for them to stay a part of that club, whether it's on the right or the left, Democratic or Republican. All of them want to be seated in that club, and it seems like they're hazing him a little bit. I think that sometimes when it comes to these seats that they have to do certain things. They have to have some critical story in which that breaks, that they said something that when the truth comes out, it proves to be the complete opposite. Because how many times when you point at Joe Biden and Obama or any other president or any other politician, which we know the word politics and politician is connected to the word lie. It's professional lying. That's all you're doing, or you're trying to say things that have truths in it, but you're not completely displaying what's the solution. You're just trying to appease to a certain group to have them become inspired to want to fund whatever organization or whatever thing you're trying to push. So it doesn't surprise me when it comes to that. But on Christianity and the mass exodus is what I stated in the beginning. It's the information age. That's what I was trying to tell Newstoter. It's not exactly science. Science has always and will always be around. That's just taking your research from going in the field and doing little studies and whatnot. But information, having quick access, having a cell phone, having a laptop, and having Wi-Fi for you to type something in and be be able to study it instantly, there's a lot of people that can see how many fallacies these religions in the past and the control when the sister was talking about when you came up in black households, it was a rule in the house that you had to go to church. It was a rule in my house. You couldn't be in the house if you didn't go to church. And as soon as you didn't want to go to church, that pretty much ended you being in the house. You want to go to church on Sunday, So that kind of like, okay, what type of domineering type thing that is. So it's the studies, our ancestors, like I said before, we know exactly what the deal is. And it took a certain movement, the Afrocentric movement, which came before this reparations movement or the creation of wokeness, which I think wokeness is a loose term because that's a government word now. I don't like to say the word woke anymore. Wokeness is a controlled opposition term now. Anybody can be woke, and they say that politically. So when that new wave of consciousness came, new information came, and in the new information, people decided that they wanted to be spiritual. They wanted to be closer to the truth, even if they're not practicing spirituality the way that these ancient people practice it, because a lot of Christianity demonized spirituality in itself, yet it's a contradiction because spirituality is the ancestor of the parent to religion. Religion doesn't exist without a spiritual system. So it's a contradiction, and it's controlled, just as the government controls people. The parents try to control what the kids are to believe or what to know, because there's a difference between beliefs and knowing. And the brother original is completely true. The Cushites did establish those spiritual systems way before the Egyptians, and we're talking going into Indus Kush as well. Indus Kush, the Kush Empire, all of that, they're like the grandfathers or the grandmothers to the Kemetic civilizations in Egypt. And those are the ancestor that all of us can point to, that not just Africans, all of us can point to that, because all of us have some type of genealogy connection to the Kushites, because they were travelers. They went all over. So now that we establish what religion is as what I said earlier, I don't know if everybody heard what it was. I think now we should research and actually get an understanding instead of hearing all of this woke stuff, the woo-woo stuff, like, oh, you got to put this on, put this altar here in your house. You got to do all of this. Now we can be able to understand what spirituality really is. What is an affirmation? When you're trying to be successful in this world and you have a white supremacist system in standard that tries to limit you in your success, it's important for us to build a system of spirituality, because we're not going to be a whole nation if we don't have a spiritual basis or connection. How did the greatest revolutions happen? Those people had a spiritual basis. Even looking at the Haitian Revolution, which is, they haven't done anything since, but they had a spiritual connection. Even if you call voodoo or whatever they practice, the devil, whatever you want to say it is, those people accomplished something that black people haven't accomplished in a long time. So we can look back at spirituality. I think we can make a lot of advances. So I made my point on that. And yes, with white on white crime, they're not going to ever bring that up. But in any race, the impoverished areas, areas that have poverty in, there's going to be crime. That's just a standard in any civilization. That's history. Where there's poverty, which there always is and will be in a system of economics, there's going to be crime. So if there's more white people, let's just go with their statistics. If there's more white people in this country than black people, then there has to be more white crime. That's not even a debate. So they're just focused on controlling the narrative, and I think we need to keep doing what we're doing with this, having spaces and informing people, having the conversation. There's nothing wrong with challenging someone either. A lot of people in the black community, we have a problem with someone challenging. Excuse me if I'm talking too long, but we have a problem with someone challenging something. There's nothing wrong with us challenging these things because we've been led astray a lot of times. We don't really know who's on our side on this. We don't really know, especially just had a space about people who make a lot of money in the black community. Some people that make money in the black community get paid to infiltrate the black community. We just don't know. So when we ask questions, it's not always, I'm trying to challenge whether you have some type of intellectual level or your credentials. It's just, just trying to get a good feel on where you stand. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'll end with that.
Yeah, that's what's good on that one, man. You definitely wrapping it up and kicking the flags, brother, for sure on that one, man. Yeah, I got caught in the matrix right there trying to hit this daggone mic. I don't know if I guess the top mic do. But
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, let it really go.
Yeah, he was. Ani was, as they say in the legal field, true and correct in what he said. Because see, like I told you before, when I was attacked by this Muslim, because he thought he could just come out and poke his chest out, and that I would cow down. This article is an article from like 202. Well, this and the sister, she wrote a book. It's called Slave. Her name is Mindy Nende Nazir, Nazir, Nazer. Now she wrote about how she was these. I think they was black because you got like black and white Arabs in the Sudan. They raided her village and they took her to England as a slave. Because you have a lot of these Muslim people. They and I found information even back to like 1982, where the American government knew that they were bringing people over here who were slaves. And like I said, they're still doing this today. But the Muslim, they act like their stuff don't stink. We just smell worse than anybody else's. And but these things take place. But this sister, she somehow got away, and then she connected with some Christians over in England. And there's been this Christian Muslim feud for who knows how long. And it was something that they wrote, something that the Christians wrote that she said whatever, and they would the Muslim was able to get something done where they tried to what's the word? What you call it? I can't think of the word now. Anyway, they tried to called her a liar. And so then the case started to kind of go down. But these people, I'm telling you, these Muslims, and I wouldn't be surprised if you got some Christians still doing the same thing too. And I wouldn't be surprised that there are some, I wouldn't be surprised that there are some black folks still enslaved in this country somewhere. That's the extent because in Islam, it says that you can enslave people who are not Muslims. But yet even some of the black people who are Muslims, they treat them like crap. And then in the Bible, what it says, slaves obey your earthly master or whatever, something like that. So it's like, well, wait a minute. But see, one of the things that people have shown is that like the spiritual system that came from ancient Africa, it wasn't about slavery. There wasn't a slave component connected to it. And so what these people did, they took that information and they decided to make it work for themselves, and they're still doing it. But luckily now, people who are saying, young people who are saying, I'm not buying it anymore, because one of our interns who was from India, he said his family was angry. He heard me talking one day, and I told this person, this Christian, that no, I'm not into that, but I'm cool. You all right, go ahead and do your thing. And so he and I had a conversation, and he said that his family was angry with him because he no longer followed the Hindu process. He says, no, he said he had traveled the world a little bit, lived in I think it was the Philippines or somewhere within Asia, and he worked over there. And he told me, he said, Richard, he said, people, you just judge people by just what they do and how they act towards you. I said, yeah. And he and I would have conversations all the time, because I think it's just not Christianity and Islam. I think it's religion, period, because they have sold this bag of goods to people. And when you ask them to prove what they're saying, because see, like if you look at it, like they're like these composites. It's called the 42 principles of Maya. Now, those 42 principles says, I have not stolen or whatever. I have not done this, that, and whatever, right? But when you look at the Ten Commandments, which is that's where the Ten Commandments came from. The Ten Commandments says, thou shalt not. So you're looking outside of yourself for something to tell you what you shouldn't be doing when it was innately within you all along. And so that's the difference. That's the difference now, that some of these people are coming into this information and they're saying, well, wait a minute, that's where this came from. But why don't I just study this and try to live by these principles and leave this other stuff alone? And so I just want to say that, because I think people need to understand the wars that have been fought because of religion. If you don't believe in this, and I don't know which one is worse, Christianity or Islam, but I tell you, I was talking to someone once, and it was this guy on the radio, and he said, oh, well, the only non-violent people are the Buddhists. I said, oh, you better go study the Buddhists. Them early Buddhists, boy, they was violent as hell. They kill your ass. And when he did some research, he saw that, damn, brother, you was right. I said, I'm telling you, anything that has that R in front of it, you best believe that more than likely, there's a hell of a lot of violence to go along with it. And I ran with that.
Spitting that fire version of the show, man. Spitting that fire, man.
Hold it down for 1 second for me, DJ.
I got it, bro. So yeah, at the end of the day, what are the solutions or whatever the case may be that we will have to take in order to combat these type of situations of, like, if we're not going to the church anymore, and we're not going to the mosque or any of these other religious temples. What is the solution to combat for us moving forward? So me and Sis Online, we were saying that we need to start a church surrounding reparations. To let reparations be our religion. What y'all think about that? What's up, honey?
I think that's a good for business. Because church, when you use the word church, that's also a business term. A lot of people don't know that. Like, you're not always supposed to file your 501c3. There's a 508c3 that goes federally. That you don't have to be charged any taxes by federal. That's above the state. You go federally. And a lot of people don't know about the 501c3, but I think that'll be good, DJ. If y'all did that, that'll be very good, and that'll be something efficient for business. But as far as your question, as you spoke about reparations as a church, if you formed it around reparations, a church around specifically that's great for our community. But to the basis of what else solutions, the other solutions, I think that we need to have the conversation now about the solutions. And I think it starts with a basis of talking to people who deal with spirituality, not always people, that have to be of a certain standard of spirituality. We need to understand what spirituality is and why the community needs to have a spirituality system.
naturally don't want to be a supremacist. We don't look at how we can try to take control. If you look at the history of black civilization, you never killed because of race or any other type of standard, unless you were fucking with us. If you fuck with us, you got dealt with how you got dealt with. But we didn't have no prison systems in ancient civilizations. We knew other things that we could do that's much worse than prison that I could get into. But we have the information, is all I'm saying. Me, myself, I teach classes on spirituality. I've done it for 10 years. I've taught classes on our spiritual systems, what spirituality means to melanated people, and how we could utilize this. And I'm all for anything we're trying to do also economically to push against this system that's against us. I'm with that. The only thing that I would say is begin to understand that before we become a nation, we have to have a system of spirituality. Now, we can do it without spirituality, but you're going to see a serious flaw once we accomplish that, because we don't have these strong foundational basics, 5 years to go by. We got one person practicing Islam, we got another person practicing Christianity, we got another person practicing Buddhism, we got another person practicing Judaism. It's not a strong foundation. Not to say everybody can be on accord. We just need to understand what is spirituality in itself and how our ancestors practice it. Once we have education on that, then we can understand the differences of why people would want to go a certain route. We're educated on it, and we have a foundation that all of us can stand upon in our different communities, because we finally have separated the definitions of religion from what spirituality is, and that's empowering.
Nah, that's pretty fire right there. So how can one go about finding their own way to be more spiritual, or finding their spirituality to come back, and we can all be there, on one accord that way? If anybody want to answer that, not just you, Anna.
Here's what I'm not gonna do.
What would that be?
Here's what I'm not gonna do. I listen to a lot of different people's take. I listen to Dr. Umar. I listen from everybody from Dr. Umar to Charleston White to 85 Style Show to Leonard. I try to give everybody an understanding, at least for me. But what I would not tolerate is people talking about, oh, you just have to be disrespected to be respected. No, I'm not going to do that. You have to understand that, oh, this person's, I am with whatever people's religions, thoughts, whatever are. What I'm not going to do is be disrespected in the conversation or the concourse of it.
Did I disrespect you, ma'am?
Well, you kind of told me to shut up, so kind of.
When did I tell you to shut up, ma'am?
You did not say that verbatim, but it was pretty much like, I'm speaking, stop talking, woman.
Or prototypically, when you're an adult, when another adult is speaking, you let them finish.
That's cool.
Anything else?
Nope.
Going once, going twice. Go ahead, original.
Yeah, Brother DJ. Like part of those components Ani was saying is correct. Is that, see, most people, they don't want to see these people here today. They have these, these 10 commandments, but the ancient people, they had 42 which they lived by on a daily basis, and they operated under that truth, justice, righteousness, order, balance, reciprocity, and harmony. But you look at people today, it's like they come at you from all kind of ways with trying to rip you off, but they're not trying to rip you off or whatever. Because I had to share something with someone once because they were saying, "Oh yeah, these Christians." Blah, blah, blah. I said, "Girl, hold up. It's not just the Christians. It's these people who, some of these people who say that they're into spirituality. When I lived in California, like sometimes we would have like a person to come out, and this guy, he was supposed to be some spiritual something or some spiritual whatever. And so oftentimes to defray the cost, you would have that person to stay at someone's home, And so this, I think he had been up there before, but see, I didn't find out about this until after the fact. It was too late, and I even forgot because if I knew what the guy's name was, I'd put his name out there. But he stayed at the home. His sister, she opened up her home to him, so he'd have a place to stay while he was there. And so, sister woke up in the middle of the night, and this brother, he was butt naked and erected in her bedroom. So she didn't call the police, but she called some brothers that was involved in that, and they came in and moved this brother up out of there. And so, so you have to. You have to have, like, it's just like Ernie said, there has to be like a spiritual component, but you also have to be careful who you interact with, because that was so disrespectful to this sister that she woke up in the middle of the night. This guy's in her bedroom now. She's in there sleeping. She wakes up and he's pointing at her. And so it's things like that goes on, and so it's not just so quote unquote. I think it has more. Well, the religion themselves, I think they kind of operate somewhat on a corrupt level too. But then you have corrupt people that will take information and corrupt it to their own benefit. And that's what this guy did, because when I found out about it, and this one brother was telling me, I said, "Well, who was it?" But I remember when this guy came to the study center, but I could not recall. To this day, I cannot recall his name. But yeah, you have people that will say they're one way, but they operated in a corrupt manner. So I just want to drop that out there, because I know sometimes people say, "Well, people always talking about the church and this and that." No, sometimes it's just people. It's just corrupt people take information and they corrupt it for their own good in our land.
All right, y'all. I'm back up in the space. I know I missed some good conversation going on and whatnot. Just to touch up on George Santos real quick. For y'all that know, I recently just lost my mother, and to hear somebody sitting up here making light of that, it's just crazy. Sitting up here making light of the fact that coming up with excuses or coming up with lies about how his mother died and stuff is just, something I can't really comprehend. Like I said, I just lost my mother. We just put her to rest on last Thursday, and to sit up here and have somebody sitting up here with all other lies he told about being black and being Jewish and being this and being that or whatever, that's just beyond ridiculous to me. I can't comprehend that. I can't respect that. And I can't understand a man sitting up here making light of his mother passing away, but I guess different strokes for different folks. So
I love you, bro. I recently lost my mother too, so just saying I love you, bro, and that's all. I'm going back on you.
Well, I appreciate that, sister. I appreciate that, and thank you. And my heart goes out to you and your family as well too. We know how tough a loss that is, to lose your first teacher and maybe your greatest teacher that you'll ever have, your mother. So I definitely my heart goes out to you and your family as well too. Governor, I see you got your hand up. What's going on?
Nothing, Newstoter. How's everybody doing this evening? I just wanted to add into it. I hear you guys talking. Peace to the room and everybody. One of the main things that has always helped me with spirituality, religion, and things like that is just reading. You know what I'm saying? You pick up that book, you ain't got to go to church to hear nobody's interpretation. Pick that book up and you understand the laws, and that should help govern you. You know what I'm saying? Come up with your own interpretation of, you know what I'm saying, your own understanding of the religious text. I land right there.
All right, brother. I appreciate you. And I'll take it even a step further. You know, Dr. John Henry Clark, he said it, you know, if you're going to use religion, use it to your advantage, basically, you know. And that goes with the idea of how the creator looks and everything else. Use it to your advantage. Don't just accept somebody else's their idea of religion or whatever, whether you're a religious person or not, you're Christian, Muslim, whatever. You know, that's one thing. You can say what you want to about the Nation of Islam, but Elijah Muhammad and them, they took Islam, and you know, he put his own mix on it, his spin, whether people agree with it or not. He made it work for him and his people. So I can respect that aspect as well too. So, you know, however you go about it, whether you're atheist, and you know, I don't really go with the whole atheist thing, but whether you say I'm more spiritual than religious or whatever, you know, that's all fine and good as well too. So, you know, however you're going to use it, just go ahead and use it for the benefit of you and your people as well. That's the only thing I would say about that.
And I second that. I agree with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I might push back against it a little bit.
Not nay.
The only reason I say that is because even if I take religion and I try to compress it into something different, even with what Elijah Muhammad did and other people did with religion, it hasn't done nothing to benefit us. I mean, the Nation of Islam, as great as it was, it hasn't changed the situation for Black people at all. You know, and I'm not putting it on them specifically, but there's a lot of people that's a part of Islam in the Nation of Islam that's still, you know, impoverished, and they don't have an economic system. They don't, you know, we're still in the same situation. So I can see what you mean, Newstoter, if it works out for you, like individually. But I mean collectively, what DJ was saying for people, I don't think it works for a standard of everyone being in religion. I think that we need to re-understand what religion is, separate from spirituality. I think we need to be re-educated on it. I think we really do.
Well,
Can I ask a question? Can I just ask a question for real? For real. Because we've gone from the Black standard to religion, and I must say, it is a very tasking thing to exist as a Black American. I'm from South Carolina. I don't know what people in New York do, but all of a sudden I'm responsible for what every Black person does. I cannot bear that burden, and I just can't. And we have to stop that. There is no way that one Black person in America can bear all the burdens for every Black sorrow that has ever crossed these shores. We have to stop that. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Ma'am, can you please put context to what you're saying?
My context is what you're saying. Oh, we're Black and we have to sit there. No, I'm not. I am Black, but I cannot be responsible for what other people do. I'm responsible for what I do. And no, I am not a generalization. I'm not a generalization of what all Black people should be. I'm not that. I have an individual name and I'm an individual person. And I should not be responsible if one Black person commits a crime that all Black people are considered criminals.
Okay, now what did I say that you're responsible for black people? What did I say that?
Sir, it's not about you. You have to understand the totality of what I'm talking about. You have to get up. You have to understand that it's not about you. You have to understand it's about everything that exists. Every time you look at the news media, oh, somebody that shot them out. I hope they're not black. If they are black, then oh my gosh, black people are. Come on now. Nobody does that when a white boy shoots up a high school. They don't. When a white boy shoots up all these high schools, they don't count all the white boys as, oh, white boys are just no. They generalize us. And I'm not going to be a part of a general population.
Man, I'm going to be honest, you're babbling. We have no idea what you're talking about. We were speaking on Christianity, and you brought up a point. I'm from South Carolina, too. So you're not the only one in South Carolina that's trying to do something. And I agree, as an individual, you got to do something for the whole standard to move forward. Each and every one of us as an individual, we have to do something. But you're kind of babbling about, you know. I'm
not babbling, sir. I made two very valid points. No, no, sir.
Okay, real quick, just to go ahead, Winner, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go ahead and let your plane, and because we got Governor, he had his hand up, and you actually went in front of him, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you land your plane. I think like he was just saying was that we were just basically talking about his thing was that, you know, religion hasn't moved black people forward. So that's his opinion. Now, you know, go ahead and state your opinion. Like I said, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna kick it to Governor after you. So go ahead, Winner.
As I was saying, I made two very valid points. My first point is, if it's a black person that commits a crime or robs, it could be the most ancillary thing, then it's all black people. But if a white boy shoots up a high school, that's just that white boy. It doesn't translate to all white boys are high school shooters. No, it doesn't. So
now, how does that tie into religion and helping black people though?
How that ties into religion and helping black people is that we are not accountable for other people that just happen to look like us. We're not. I am not accountable for YSL. I'm not accountable for that shit. That's what them niggas chose to do. I'm not accountable for that. But I will be accused of it just because my skin is black.
All right.
So how do
Okay. I get what you're saying, and we understand that, you know, everybody in this space, you know, even though we get lumped in as a group, nobody can be responsible for no one person is responsible for the entire race. So I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Every time black people come up,
but no, but real quick, sister, real quick. I think all he was saying was that, you know, and me and Governor was saying, you know, that I believe that if you're going to take religion as a black person, because the religion we was given with a white face, I'm saying if you're going to take religion, go ahead and use it to the best of your ability to uplift you and your people or whatever. If you're going to use religion, and we talk about, people talk about, they talk about the actual white Jesuses over there in Africa and stuff like that. And you go to other parts of the world when they have the actual picture of who they believe to be God, it's not a white person. If you go to China, they're not going to have a picture of a white Jesus and stuff like that. So I'm saying, to the best of your ability, and I know people want to say religion and spirituality or whatever different and this and that. I understand that totally. But at the same time, religion can be a powerful tool if used correctly, but you have to use it correctly. And so on that much, me and the brother, we kind of disagree with, because just the same way that these white folks are using religion to empower them, you know, and they use it politically and they use it financially and this and that, I believe that black folks could also use it the same way. Now, a lot of white folks don't really believe in everything that's in the Bible. A lot of them never have believed in that, but they found it as a way to go ahead and empower them. They use a nonprofit status and everything else to go ahead and enrich themselves and enrich their people. So I don't have an issue if black people say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get me a 501. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this church as a way to go ahead and employ people that go to my congregation. I'm going to use this as a way to get real estate for people that go to my congregation. I'm going to use this as a way to go ahead and keep food on people's table and keep them insured and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about, empowerment. Okay. You can have your you can believe that Jesus is the Lord and Savior, or you may not believe it. But trust me when I say, a lot of these white folks that had these mega churches and stuff, and always have, because of people, if white America truly believed in everything that was in the Bible and everything about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ the way they claim, then half of the stuff that went down in this country would have never went down. First off, the country, the way it was taken, would have never been taken, and the way it was populated by people stealing them and taking them from a whole nother place would have never went down. So, like I say, the whole thing about religion and everything else, whether people use whether you're Arab, or because we saw the way the Arabs over there turn on their own black brothers and stuff whenever they got a chance. You're not supposed to be doing that, but yet they went ahead and they was willing to cut black people's throats just to go ahead and get their hands on all the riches and stuff like that too. So I'm saying, if you're going to use religion, no problem. Religion at one time did help black people in this country, whether we want to admit it or not. It did help because, like I said, the only time you could actually get together and do things was through the actual guise of religion. And that goes back to being on the plantation. You weren't going to get together and create no think tank when you was on a damn plantation. You wouldn't have got the crap whooped out of you. But you could sit up there and go into the church and sit up there and talk about religion while also plotting other things. That happened also in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s as well too. So I'm saying you can use it as a tool if you go ahead, and if you're going to use it as a tool, you need to go ahead and make it effective for you and your people. That's what I'm saying. Now, people in the space may disagree, but like I said, it's a reason you have these mega churches. It's a reason these people use these nonprofits and everything else the way they use it. Now, unfortunately, we haven't been using it the same way. We've dropped over since 1980, probably close to $500 billion in the black churches. How is that benefiting us financially, economically? Yeah, we could talk about spiritually, we could talk about religion and this and that, but how is that impacting our people? So when I look at it like that, that's what I'm looking at. How can it be beneficial to us? Okay. Anybody else, you know what I'm saying? They may have a different opinion of that. Some people believe that religion is solely your connection to a higher power, and that nothing else should matter. You shouldn't worry about empowering yourself or your people, because in the afterlife you'll be empowered by God. And other people say, well, hey, I'm going to be empowered right here on this planet, and when God comes to get me, then I can be empowered in the kingdom with him as well too. So it's just how you go about looking at it. But I don't have an issue with any black person start a church. Like I say, I have my issues with actual organized religion, but if you're going to take organized religion and you're going to use it as a tool, and I'm not saying just go in there and just manipulate people and rip them off and this and that, but if you're going to actually do something beneficial to improve people's lives and stuff like that in your neighborhood, in your community, in your family, I don't have an issue with that personally. That's just me. Govern, go ahead and unmute your mic real quick.
Yep, I'm here. I was just going to add in that when the good brother brought up the Nation of Islam, a lot of religions have turned into like Costco. You got to have a membership. So you're talking to somebody that was kicked out of vacation Bible school for asking too many questions. I love my Lord and Savior. I'm a real positive person. But when it comes down to, actual, praise and worship at a center, I just choose to read the book. I really do. I read Proverbs to my son on his birthday every year. Break down the messaging as I see it. So as long as you're using the message for what it's intended, and that's to teach, I believe that's the key to our salvation. Because actually, if you think about the black church used to be the bank, the post office. It used to be the center of our community. It's not that anymore. And that's because of the grifting. So I hear what everybody's saying, but what I'm just saying is pick that old ass book up and just read some of those laws and those stories and just get an understanding of right and wrong. See, the one thing about us as a culture, we've gotten away from shame with these 501c3s and stuff like that from these white folks. You know, they base all of this shit off of, oh, I'm better than him, I'm better than them, and we're just an accepting people. And there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes shame is necessary. I land right there.
All right, appreciate you, brother. Ani, go ahead and unmute your mic. You got baby sister up next, and you're right. Like I say, it's just a person's actual connection and whatnot too. But like I said, I've seen the way, and I get what you're saying about the 501s and stuff like that as well too. But like I said, if you can use that for your advantage for your people, I don't have an issue with it because everybody else is using it. The Roman Catholic Church, the ones that went ahead and put a lot of this stuff into play, they should have used it for their people as well too. So, I get what you're saying. Like, go ahead and pick that book up, and you're right. I mean, go ahead and pick the book up and read it and do what you need to do. But also, like I say, if you do have a 501, you do have a church, you do have a shelter. If a hurricane comes and your people don't have any place to stay at, then and your church is big enough, it should be no reason why you can't go in there and your congregation can't come in there and wade out the damn hurricane. That's what I'm talking about like that. If somebody in your congregation, lights just got turned out, they shouldn't have to go to a shelter or live in their car or anything like that. That's my thing. If you have people taking and tithing and taking the little bit they have, the 10% or whatever of their income, and they're putting it in there, then man, y'all need to go ahead and try to look out for these people as well too. Ani, go ahead and unmute your mic.
Yeah, so what I was speaking to earlier was the 508C1A. 508C1A is a faith-based organization. It's federally tax exempt, and people should look into that. But I'm just saying there's a lot of contradictions in our community because we could say the standard of how we came together as a family unit was church. And that is true through Christianity, but we also was taught Christianity the wrong way. Then we refined the way that we was taught Christianity. We did do that in the 1900s. And then what happened? He just told us what happened. We started mega churches. These pastors, we what, $400 billion siphoned through our community through religion. And now we're like on the third stint now. And I'm just a person of patterns and cycles. I think we need to properly educate ourselves into where these things come from. It doesn't. I mean, reading your son's Psalms and breaking that down to him, that's going to teach him morality. It's going to teach him to be a good person. It's going to teach him basically a standard of what religion is basing on how your spirit is developed, in a proper way. But there is other stories that biblically they're based upon. And if we're going to become advanced people instead of being more like the child out of the different groups of people of how we're looked at, then we have to become more advanced. So you got to take your child to let them understand what Gnosticism is, pre-Christian text, the Gospel of Thomas. Let them read the Gospel of Thomas. Let them, if you're going to be in Christianity, be in Christianity. Understand theology. Start to study the Gnostic text, the Valentinian Gnostic text. Teach them about the pre-Adamites, the black people that existed before Adam, the pre-Adams, the pre-Adamites. That's in the Pentateuch. You can look that up. The Pentateuch is Elijah Muhammad talked about that, and Reverend what's the other guy, whatever his name is now, with the Nation of Islam, and also tell them about the Babylonian Genesis. The story of Moses came from Utnapishtim in a Sumerian cuneiform text that you can read 10,000 years before you even get the story of Moses from a biblical stance coming from the Romans or whoever the Council of Nicaea that took the stories and comprised it into the Gutenberg press of where we get the Bible printed today, funded through King James, who was a homosexual, who also printed the demonology book. Nobody ever points to that. So we're going to teach them that. Let's educate them and advance them. Let's not just read them something, and let's do them better than how we were done. Let's do them better. Let's make them more advanced. That's all I'm saying. And it's going in circles saying, oh, it sounds like we just want to say something celebratory that's going to make us feel good. And that's a big issue that our community has. Something that makes us feel good. Something that we have a normality with. That's not going to make us more advanced. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Let me kick it to baby sister and original after that. Go ahead, baby sister.
That is very well said. That's a different point of view for our kids to have. We need balance because I grew up in the same type of situation too. My father was my mother was a nurse, and my father was a deacon, and every Saturday, you got ready for church the next day, and it was, it is what it was. But if you didn't agree, then that was one of the precursors to say, well, then you're smelling yourself, or you're old and musty, or you got to get out if you don't want to go to church. So I can really relate to that. But if we don't balance it, they don't know. Just like he said, there was somebody before Adam, and I hate when I hear people say, Black people, we're so forgiving. No, we're not. We were killing just like they were killing when they were trying to rape us. If you think a brother was going to let his wife just be defiled in front of him, you got to be crazy. We was kicking ass back. Sisters was fighting these slave masters' wives. So when we keep hearing about, they were just whipping on us, I kind of think we was whipping some ass back. They just don't want to tell us that. But we have to counter with us being humble and, forgiving. Well, they have a cheek just like we have a cheek. We got a foot just like they got a foot. So I understand what you're telling, we got to tell our kids we're much, much more than what we're being told. And for me, and I'm going to land my plane, I'm not going to listen to anybody who won't even listen to what the scripture says that God is supposed to look like. It tells everybody in the book what God is supposed to look like. And they refuse to do it. They paint them with blue eyes, blonde hair, and it clearly tells us hair of wool, feet of bronze. But they can't even do that, but they want us to follow. I'll land my plane.
All right, original. Go ahead and unmute your mic.
Okay. Yeah, Newstoter, I think, and I'm in agreement with what Governor was saying, but I think, also too, here's what people get angry with me. Several years ago, Tony Browder, he was on a talk show, and I asked him, I said, is there a word for God in the ancient Kemetic language? And I knew the answer already in the word, and he said, no, there isn't. Because I had conducted some research on the word God, and it stated that the word God is a Germanic word that came out of the 6th century AD. Now we're in AD now, and the way these books are written is saying that this God did all these things, but there was no word for God from the people who wrote, these scriptures. And then I also did research, etymology research on the word Lord. And if I remember correctly, that came out of like the 13th or 14th century AD. And so I've had people to get angry with me because I would, question this, and they would get upset saying, well, no, you're wrong. I said, well, I'm not. I said, if I'm wrong, I want you to conduct research and prove me wrong. And after you conduct your research, let's compare notes. But they've never wanted to, do the research and compare notes. And so I think we also have to look at that because as I said before, those composites, the 42 composites of my art, it says I. It was about how you have to live your life, not that you follow some invisible being that was telling you what to do. It's what you had done yourself. And so I think if more of us, if more of us did that, because it's like what someone was saying earlier, and as I had mentioned before, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, even he talked about how the preacher was just fleecing the flock and wasn't providing people with the spiritual nourishment that they needed to conduct their lives. And so I think this is something that has to be with like the individual. I mean, there's no harm in gathering with people and studying, because some people learn better that way when they gather with others and they begin to hear what someone is saying, and they can take notes and then research what that person is sharing with them and then come to a conclusion. I'm in full agreement with that. So that's how that's how I was able to learn a lot of this stuff, because like I said, in my house too, you have to go to church on Sunday, And there was one time when I did not want to go to church, and I just under my breath I said, I don't want to go hear about no stinking Jesus. And when I think my brother told on me, my mother beat the crap out of me, because that's the wrong thing to say in a black woman's house, And so, but I just tell people, just do your research. If you have a question on something, because like a lot of the religious organization, when you have a question, like I don't know what the Muslims do, but like with Christianity, if you have a question, they'll say, come back on Wednesday when we have Bible study. Then you bring the question up again in Bible study. Well, we're not talking about that right now. We're gonna discuss this. But see, if people open these religions up, instead of people just sitting there hearing someone pontificate for about an hour or two, if they are allowed to engage and ask questions, or once the person finished, like when I've attended lectures, once the person finished, there's a Q&A section after the lecture is completed, and you can better interact so that person can, share information. You can take notes and then move on from there. But unfortunately, too many of these places, they just want you to hear what the preacher or whoever is saying and just believe that. And see, people have moved away from the just belief. They have moved into I want to know, into the knowing phase of things. And this is why things are moving in the manner in which they are now, because people want to know. If they can't get the complete truth, they want to get as close to it as they can. And I'll land with that.
All right, Original. I definitely appreciate that. Is there anybody else that wants to speak? We probably get ready to close this space out in a second. We've been going for a little minute. So if anybody else wants to speak, please.
I do real quick. He said something that my aunt, I heard my mother and my aunt talking. And it just made sense when he just said this. My mother was, God rest her soul, but she was talking to her sister. So she says, it would have been nice if I could have gone to school and, been around and just learned different things. And my aunt says, well, we go to church, and it just clicked. A lot of our parents and family members, they didn't get that chance because, they were out in the fields or whatever. And then the next generation came where they had to, work several jobs or whatever. They never really had a place to be themselves and to learn, because at work, I'm sure they were, discriminated against and just, disrespected. So maybe that was their only outlet to be around and to be normal, to just, learn something, sit beside somebody, chat amongst yourselves. And I think maybe that's the reason why they're so hardwired, because they're not talking about anything. And I'm sure they know Monday through Friday before they even get to church that, why are we always forgiving these fuckers? forgive and 70 times 7, and I'm sure some of them wanted to say no, I don't want to do that. So I think it's more or less, to me, from my mother and my aunt talking, a lot of people didn't get that chance to read and write and be normal. So I wonder why. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they're so hardwired to say the church is not doing anything for you, Grandma, and they refuse to disconnect. I don't know. I'll let my plane.
All right, I see we got Rella look like she's trying to come up and speak. Go ahead and let her get it in. Who was that? hey, hey, who was that? Like damn, like oh,
Some Robitussin or something.
what? Rella, what's up? You want to speak? You want to get something in? How you doing?
Yeah, just before you guys close, I'm good. Just, real quiet. Just kind of been, reflecting before the New Year's and still working and stuff, trying to just recoup, regroup. But I was just kind of listening, and so I saw the title. I was like, oh, God, I forgot you guys are on tonight. But hey, everybody, peace to the room.
Yeah, we came on a little bit later tonight. We came on around about 9:10 because I had to watch the FSU game. So, but
okay. Well, the white on white crime conversation, I guess I just say, like that's the degeneracy that always happens, and it's always they always try to say, well, it's the degeneracy of the rednecks or the poor whites, but honestly, when you look at the degeneracy of white on white crime, there is a culture that ushers itself into different industries, and other groups pick that up. They pick up the same practices. That's why when we always say white supremacy, I always think, well, it seems like the face of white supremacy is constantly evolving because as more and more people come into the country, they realize how to monetize and map out a way to sort of box out the least of these that are here. And I use the term the least of these to segue into the Christianity talking points because I always say, Baptists, non-denominational way, Black, I think Christians who are not a part of maybe like the Catholic Church or anything like that grew up differently. And it just so happens to be the foundation of Christianity. However, I know how I remember how my parents would talk about white supremacy, and they would talk about, the impact of, what the church was supposed to be doing with the community. And even though, like Baby Sister said, it was kind of like a safe haven for our people to get together and to be themselves. But at the same time, it also was a move to say you had people worshiping and on a spiritual level trying to say, to recognize that we do have soul and connection. But a lot of our people were battling and still battling, I think, because they fall prey to the victimization from white supremacy. And that could come from any culture, the kumbaya moments or, letting your guard down and being so loving and things like that. It's almost kind of like a double-edged sword, and you get smited for it or you get smacked around for it because I think we do show more humanity than any other group. The problem is, for some reason, I don't know if it's not being realized enough to the point where economics impacts us so much that our faith sometimes gets sacrificed for it. And even to the point where, when it's time to evolve and become revolutionaries, it's a battle with your flesh and your soul and stuff like that. So the mass exodus, I'm not sure what you were referring to because I kind of missed that discussion. But George Santos, I have a recording of George Santos. He was in a room with a room full of so-called conservatives. And I remember prior to his running that after January 6th, how he was talking about how January 6th wasn't real, it didn't happen, and that how, that there really needs to be a push, to, get the records of what happened with January 6th for the people who were gonna, get backlash and try to be arrested. I remember in that room, you hear all these pale faces who are supposed to be conservative Americans, literally making an excuse that January 6th was not a domestic terrorist attack, that it was white Americans, or excuse me, I don't even say white, it was Americans exercising their freedom. And I think to myself, well, when you had slaves revolting, trying to exercise the fact that they wanted to be free, and they were pushing back against, slavery, and pushing back against death and murder and, the lack of humanity. It was deemed as, oh, well, they were, just being savages. So it's almost like when you look at how we are programmed are pushed to be programmed to be indoctrinated, I always feel like, no, somebody has to be the voice of reason. And I rely a lot on my faith to help me get to that point, to make sure that when it's time for me to pull my sword, that I'm pulling my sword in righteousness, because there are so many demons that you have to slay that it's not your own strength that you're able to do it. It really has to be on the strength of Yahweh. And I really, really think that we somehow can't forget that, even in the movement of what's happening for those people who do practice, their faith, and their spirituality, because these people out here are honestly, I feel like they're like walking spirits, demonic spirits, and they will usher people into all kinds of stuff. And George Santos, I mean, he's running around talking about how he's now he's mixed race. He's not he's black and white, I believe. Now, so it's a very interesting thing. So I think hopefully I touched on everything, but yeah.
All right, sister. As always, appreciate you. You started to come into spaces late though. Like you come up here right as we get ready to close it out. I know you be doing your thing and whatnot, but so I still look forward to hearing you. But you come right towards the very tail end when we get ready to close it out. So, but still, peace to you and peace to everybody in the space tonight. Ray, DJ, y'all go ahead and get a final word in. And I'm gonna close this out. We've been going almost 3 hours, so we're gonna go ahead and put this thing to bed right here.
You want to go first, DJ?
Yeah, as usual, you already know, man. Peace to the room. Appreciate everybody coming up. You already know Newstoter. Get on newstoter.com. Make sure y'all do your RSVP at reparations2023.com. And just to everybody in the room, another Newstoter episode in the books. See y'all on, I guess, Monday, or maybe we'll do something on the weekend. Until then, enjoy y'all weekend. Reparations up.
Last thing I'm going to say is, Christianity, Dr. Umar, and I'm not going to say it as eloquently as he said it, but I'm going to do my best. So basically, what the premise of it was is, no matter what religion you do choose to serve or worship under, make sure, like the brother said, make sure you're getting something from it. Because a lot of these religions, they're taking money from our people, but they aren't actually giving anything back to the community. Like he spoke to, in the way he put it, he said something to the notion of, when you put your money in a church bucket, what are you really getting out of it? It's basically a promise that after you die, you can have some type of salvation. But what happens to that money that goes into this bucket? You put your money in the bucket on Sunday, which I think is like $3-4 million every week that you put into a church bucket. And then on Monday, that same money goes into a white bank. Okay, what happens then? Do banks, they give that money to white land developers. Those white land developers, they go into the hood, all the damn land, and kick grandma out of her own damn house. Like grandma, she's been giving this church $50 for 20 years. They come to realize it's her doggone church money, put her ass out on the street. I land back.
Hey, that's real right there, man, for sure, man. So, like, what's the solution around it? What's the solution around that, though, right? What you think, man, we should do?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not really. I've said before. I kind of walked away from, church. I haven't really been back since my mother passed in 2014. I'm the wrong person to ask when it comes to anything about religion.
Well, not so much religion, as far as like what's the alternative. We're not going to church and being amongst each other in that way, because I think the whole conversation really is not, and I know you close the title, is just that church is where our people gathered at, like Sister Phoebe was saying. They went there for whatever the reason. So we're not gathering like that anymore. And then you think about things like this COVID, it's keeping us so farther apart. So what is the solution to try to maybe bring us back together, to be more spiritually one? You feel what I'm saying?
Oh no, I like I said, no time is trying to close. Give me some time to think on that. I honestly don't have an answer top of my head. That would, we'll talk later.
For sure, my brother. Good night.
All right, real talk. Once again, thank everybody for coming out, joining the space tonight. Thank you to all the listeners, the speakers, and everybody who went ahead and tweeted out the link. Make sure you guys, like DJ say, you make sure you subscribe to Newstoter on YouTube, and also the newsletter. It's like a million things up there in the Jumbotron, so don't even try to find it or whatever, but I'll tweet it out tomorrow. Make sure you guys visit newstoter.com daily to stay.
Top left-hand side.
Yeah, make sure you stay you visit newstoter.com daily to stay updated on Black news and Black content. So until then, whether we come back this weekend or not, guys, y'all have a good weekend. If we don't see you for the new year, please be safe, and we will see y'all then. So everybody take care.